A young man recalls his bitter past, scorned by the Empire and cast out by his own family. Now he channels the forbidden art of alchemy, determined to forge a new future. His ultimate goal is to create a single, powerful item that will change the world itself. The story rewinds to the grand estate of the House of Duke Regus, where his tragedy began. His father, the Duke, coldly informs him he's being sent away as a political hostage. A younger Thor is left speechless, completely blindsided by his father's declaration. The Duke points out the window, revealing a carriage has already arrived to take him away. Turning to face him, the Duke makes it painfully clear that his son is no longer wanted. The boy desperately questions the decision, unable to comprehend his sudden exile. This cruel sentence was the first thing his father had said to him in 3 long years. The Duke's reason is brutal and simple. He considers his son completely useless. This cruelty isn't new. He remembers being mocked by the entire household in a spectacle of public humiliation. At just 13, he chose to run away, hoping to forge a new life far from his family's scorn. But after 3 years of freedom, his father's soldiers dragged him back from his commoner life. The Duke's rage boils over as he screams that combat ability is the only thing that gives his son value. The story flashes back further, to the captain of the guard attempting to speak with the Duke about Thor's future. The captain, a lone voice of concern, stands firm in his request to discuss the boy's appraisal results. With a sneer, the Duke recounts the first appraisal at age 10, where Thor was deemed to have no fighting skills. The court of nobles was merciless, whispering about the disgrace he brought upon the esteemed ducal house. A second appraisal at age 12 only sealed his fate, revealing basic magic but no offensive power, marking him a failure. The Duke laments how his son has failed to uphold the family's legacy of combat prowess. He roars in frustration, questioning if Thor understands the despair he's caused his own father. His father points an accusing finger, reminding him of his prestigious lineage and his utter lack of fighting talent. Thor finally understands this is the harsh reality for anyone deemed weak in their society. In this empire, aristocrats are expected to be warriors, and those who can't fight are simply cast aside. The entire foundation of their nation was built on military might, making combat ability the ultimate measure of a person's worth. The boy concedes his lack of fighting prowess but reveals he possesses a different kind of power, the skill of alchemy. He passionately argues that his alchemy can be useful for repairing and even creating new items, a valuable contribution. His father silences him with a powerful blow to the table, utterly rejecting the idea that alchemy has any value. Undeterred, Thor outlines his dream of opening his own workshop, but his father's glare is filled with nothing but contempt. The Duke scoffs at this, reminding him the Empire already possesses legendary sacred weapons. Realizing his pleas are futile, Thor clenches his fist and asks where he's being sent. His father coldly repeats that the decision is final. He is to be a political hostage. A cruel smirk forms on the Duke's face, showing his satisfaction with the outcome. Turning his back, he casually warns his son that the destination is a dangerous place. He explains that every hostage sent there from the Empire has vanished, never to be seen again. A cold sweat forms on Thor's brow as he tries to comprehend the true meaning of his exile. The horrifying realization hits him as he connects the dots. He's being sent to the Demon King's territory. His father confirms this grim reality, admitting the very thought of that place fills him with dread. He explains that this territory is home to bloodthirsty demons and demi-humans, a constant threat to the Empire. He's shocked to learn of a secret exchange with the Demon Lord, questioning if his father is truly sending him to his death. Gazing outside, the Duke reveals the horrifying truth. They offer a human sacrifice every few decades to appease the demons. As guards escort him out, his father coldly orders him to disappear, cementing the boy's fear that he's a sacrifice. The surrounding nobles sneer, callously discussing how the demons are like beasts who kill humans simply to test their own strength. Without warning, his father lands a brutal blow, doubling the boy over in pain. As Thor gasps in pain, his father callously declares their business is concluded. With pure hatred burning in his eyes, the boy finally voices his absolute loathing for his father. His father retorts with chilling indifference, stating that he doesn't speak to men who are already dead. With that final, cruel dismissal, he was officially banished from the land of his birth. Locked away in a guarded carriage, the boy's despair transforms into a cold, hardened resolve. He recalls the history of the Demon King's territory, a land inhabited by the former enemies of humankind. Centuries ago, humans desperately summoned heroes from other worlds to fight back against the overwhelming demonic threat. The Demon King led a massive army in a brutal war against humanity, fighting for control of the Teikoku Empire. A legendary hero and his soldiers managed to push the demon army back, ending the long and bloody conflict. This historic battle resulted in a clear division. The north became the domain of demons, while the south remained for humans. He ponders the fragile peace, knowing the defeated demons harbor a deep-seated hatred for all of humanity. Now, he's being sent directly into that mysterious and hostile kingdom, a place shrouded in fear. Trapped in the carriage, he can't even see the outside world through the boarded-up windows. A massive escort of over 20 guards, including cavalry, ensures there is absolutely no chance of escape. He grimly reflects on his past, realizing that even running away couldn't truly sever his ties to the Duke. He reflects on his past, realizing this is exactly why he tried to escape the Duke's influence. He recalls renouncing his family name and taking a government exam to forge his own path. His work consisted of organizing documents and mending broken items, a quiet life away from his family. This career path was looked down upon, considered a last resort for those unfit for combat. Despite the low salary and constant ridicule, he found genuine fulfillment in his humble job. His workplace became a sanctuary where he could freely practice and perfect his alchemy skills. Now, his father's death sentence echoes in his mind, crushing his hopes of completing his work. A sudden thought strikes him. He was in the middle of repairing a powerful magic sword. Searching through his belongings, he finds a set of seemingly mundane spoons. He activates his alchemy on a single spoon, revealing it holds a hidden history from a soldier who once used it. With a look of intense concentration, he uses his alchemy to melt the spoon into liquid metal. His hands expertly mold the molten substance, reshaping it into a sharp, deadly blade. This is his true power, the ability to deconstruct and reconstruct matter, creating new items from old. He recalls his ultimate dream, to leave his past behind and open his very own alchemy workshop. Clutching the new dagger, his resolve hardens. He refuses to die before achieving his goal. The carriage door swings open, a guard announcing they've reached the border of the Demon King's territory. The captain of the guard formally addresses him by his full name, escorting him out into the open. Surrounded by soldiers, he stands with a look of quiet determination, ready to face what comes next. They stand at the very edge of the empire, where the road ends and the human world ceases to exist. A dark, foreboding forest looms before them, the unmistakable and terrifying border to the demon lands. Thor presses the captain for details about the handover, but the guard's silence is a grim answer in itself. Instead of answering, the captain orders an archer to fire a signal arrow deep into the demon forest. The signal is answered by a rustling in the trees as a shadowy figure emerges from the dark woods. The soldiers tense up as they realize the demons have arrived, and Thor stares in disbelief at the sight. From the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes pierces the darkness, belonging to a terrifying bull-headed beast. Two monstrous minotaurs step into the clearing, flanking a surprisingly calm, pointy-eared girl in a maid's uniform. The mysterious maid looks on with a confident, almost smug expression, completely unfazed by the tense standoff. The minotaurs stand as an intimidating wall of muscle, their powerful presence a clear threat to the human soldiers. Thor is left utterly speechless, a bead of sweat tracing his cheek as he processes the unbelievable scene before him. He's stunned not just by the sight of a real-life minotaur, but by the elegant elven maid who seems to be their master. While the Imperial soldiers tremble in fear at the sight of a demi-human, Thor calmly assesses the situation. He decides to take the initiative, stepping forward with a polite smile to make a good first impression. While introducing himself by name, his mind is already racing, plotting to lower their defenses and find an escape route. The elven maid, Mabel, curtsies with surprising elegance, formally welcoming him on behalf of the Demon King himself. He's taken aback by their courteous reception, noting it's far too polite for someone being delivered as a hostage. His mind flashes to the terrifying legends of their power, elves with devastating magic and minotaurs with superhuman strength. The soldiers panic, convinced that this polite welcome is nothing more than a deadly trap. Thor calmly rebukes his guards, pointing out the obvious politeness of their demonic hosts. The terrified guards refuse to listen, screaming that it's only natural to be wary of those things. Annoyed, Thor questions their derogatory term, recalling how these same guards treated him with utter silence and contempt. The elven maid politely apologizes for the guards' rudeness, which Thor graciously accepts. He then formally introduces himself, stating his noble lineage and his official purpose for being there. The maid steps forward, her silence making Thor sweat as he awaits her response. But instead of hostility, she beams with delight, thrilled by his polite greeting and calling him a messenger. Completely caught off guard by her cheerful demeanor, he can only manage a flustered reply. The captain of the guard interrupts, shoving a document into his hands for the official handover. Reading the document, he realizes messenger is just a polite euphemism for human sacrifice. With the captain barking orders, Thor walks towards the demonic party to finalize his own exile. The elven maid signs the paperwork with a serene smile, officially completing the transfer. She then introduces her 2 Minotaur assistants, who offer a surprisingly friendly wave to the terrified soldiers. The captain shouts a hollow farewell as his men flee in a complete panic. Thor lets out a weary sigh at their cowardice, while Mabel observes the so-called messenger. He watches his former escort disappear into the distance, their terrified screams echoing behind them. The elven maid turns to him, curious why he's the first human she's met who isn't trembling in fear. He honestly admits that he is indeed frightened by the situation. However, he explains that showing fear would be disrespectful, considering the peace treaty between their nations. To his surprise, one of the hulking Minotaurs gently offers him a hand to help him over the rough terrain. He's taken aback as the Minotaurs treat him with more courtesy than any of his own people ever did. Thor realizes the difference in kindness between the demons and the Imperial soldiers is like night and day. Mabel smiles warmly, telling him to simply speak up if the journey becomes too tiring for him. As he steps into the demon territory, a dark, potent magic he's never felt before surges through his body. He realizes that despite the difficult terrain, he feels invigorated, his stamina seemingly endless in this new land. A sudden rush of information floods his mind, revealing his alchemy has absorbed all elemental attributes and evolved into something far greater. Stunned by the unexpected power-up, he instinctively tries to check his status to understand what just happened. He discovers his skill has become creative alchemy, a legendary power that lets him create items from mere information. Another new ability, addition alchemy, allows him to imbue any substance with elemental properties. He also gains material alchemy, the power to create and shape new materials directly from his own magic. His appraisal grasp skill has also been fully awakened, letting him analyze and record data on any item he encounters. Thor stares at his status screen in disbelief, realizing his evolved alchemy defies all known principles. He finally connects the dots, suspecting his lifelong lack of combat ability was the price for developing this godlike creative power. Mabel voices her concern, explaining that the potent magic of the demon lands can be overwhelming for humans. Thor recalls that the demon territory is specifically known for its powerful darkness attribute. He contrasts this with the human empire, where the dominant magical forces are fire and earth. The elven maid confirms his theory, curious about the light magic that defines the human world. A flash of insight hits him. He finally understands that absorbing this land's darkness is what triggered his evolution. He realizes the two realms are magical opposites, with the human world rich in light and the demon land saturated with darkness. It all clicks into place. By entering this territory, he finally gathered the last element needed to unlock his true potential. As they navigate the treacherous path, one of the Minotaurs warns Mabel to be careful. The ground suddenly crumbles beneath her, but Thor reacts in a flash, catching her before she can fall. In the chaos, Mabel's precious necklace breaks, its pendant flying through the air as she watches in dismay. Thor and Mabel watch in horror as the precious pendant tumbles through the air, its chain snapped. One of the Minotaurs reveals the broken necklace was a cherished memento from her mother, despite Mabel's attempts to downplay it. As her Minotaur guard helps her up, he realizes her necklace must have snagged on a branch during the fall. The elven maid stares down at the broken heirloom in her hands, a look of quiet sorrow on her face. Despite her sadness, she puts on a brave smile, assuring Thor that everything is all right. Seeing his chance, Thor confidently offers to repair the broken chain, mentioning his past experience with such tasks. He remembers how in the Empire, the very title of alchemist was forbidden to him. Mabel looks at him with newfound curiosity, surprised to learn that a noble messenger is also a craftsman. He flashes back to his old life, where his alchemy was only ever used for simple repairs, never truly valued. With a determined gaze, he embraces his true calling, deciding to become an alchemist right here in the demon lands. He confidently introduces himself as an alchemist and offers to repair the broken chain. The elven maid stares back, her expression a mix of surprise and intrigue. She hesitates, questioning if a non-human can make such a request, but he warmly reassures her it doesn't matter. With a hopeful look, she hands him the precious memento from her mother, formally asking for his help. As Mabel and her guards watch, he sits down, ready to unleash his newly awakened creative alchemy. He accepts the challenge with a confident smile, ready to prove his worth. First, he activates his appraisal grasp skill, holding the broken heirloom to analyze its properties. The appraisal reveals it's a damaged pendant of water spirit stone, and he plans to use material alchemy to forge a new chain. He recalls the principles of his power, knowing he can create new metal by manipulating his own earth attribute magic. In a flash of light, the repair is complete, and he holds the perfectly restored necklace in his hands. Mabel and her guards stare in disbelief, amazed that he fixed the necklace using only his magic. He marvels at his own handiwork, realizing the true potential of his creative alchemy. Even he is surprised by his success, a triumphant blush creeping onto his face as he clenches his fist. He humbly returns the memento, suggesting she have a professional craftsman inspect his quick repair later. Mabel looks down at the necklace, then addresses him directly by his name for the first time. He watches her silently place the restored heirloom around her neck, a little confused by her reaction. Suddenly, her face erupts into a joyful, tear-filled smile as she thanks him for saving her mother's precious keepsake. The minotaurs and even the little spirits are completely smitten, praising him as a legendary alchemist. He smiles, relieved and glad that she's happy with the seamless repair. A wave of emotion hits him. This is the first time anyone has ever shown such genuine gratitude for his skills. He contrasts his father's hatred with Mabel's sincere thanks, finally feeling the warmth of true appreciation. Overcome with emotion, he realizes this supposed death sentence is the best thing that's ever happened to him. He wonders if the legendary alchemists of old felt this same drive to create items that could help people. She insists he call her Mabel, speculating that the joy of creation is what drove the alchemists of legend. She gives him a playful wink, officially dubbing him Mr. Alchemist Thor. He returns her smile, formally thanking his new guide for leading him to this new beginning. Against the majestic mountains of the demon realm, he marks the true beginning of his life as an alchemist. Now traveling in a much friendlier carriage, he gazes out at the vast plains, questioning if this is truly the Demon King's territory. His view reveals a wide, flowing river bustling with trade ships, painting a picture of prosperity, not desolation. A closer look reveals the ship's crew are muscular fishmen, another stunning revelation about this mysterious land. He now stands as a powerful alchemist, backed by the unseen might of the demon realm. He sees a land filled with diverse demi-humans, from bearmen and wolfmen to mermaids, all living their lives. He reflects on the Empire's propaganda, which painted this land as a chaotic hellscape. In reality, he finds a peaceful society where families of rabbit folk go about their day. The stories told in the Empire were of monstrous beasts attacking any human on sight. Mabel explains that she hopes he will contribute his skills to their society. She reveals that with a small population, every individual's contribution is vital to their kingdom's survival. This confuses him, as he was sent to be a hostage, not a valued member of their workforce. He presses her for information, asking about the fate of the human hostages who came before him. Mabel reveals the last human arrived 50 years ago, long before she was born, and she only knows of him through rumors. She explains the last hostage was allowed to roam freely and was eventually sent back to the Empire in secret. Thor listens intently, realizing the vanished hostages might not have been killed after all. He understands the Empire's perspective. They believe they're sending sacrifices who will naturally try to flee. But in the demon realm, these so-called hostages are actually treated as honored guests. This means the previous sacrifices simply ran away, and the demons never bothered to report their escape to the Empire. A sad look crosses Mabel's face as she asks if he, too, plans on leaving them. She clasps her hands, explaining that an alchemist with his unique skills is unheard of in their kingdom. With pleading eyes, she begs him to stay, promising he'll be well taken care of. Flustered but touched, he smiles and reaffirms his official purpose is to maintain peace between their lands. He internally admits his original plan was to escape, but now sees no reason to run from a place that welcomes him. He reflects that Mabel gave him the chance to finally be an alchemist, and he refuses to disappoint her. With renewed determination, he vows to do everything in his power to help this new country. His heartfelt promise makes the elven maid blush with overwhelming happiness. She informs him they'll soon arrive at the demon castle for a direct audience with the demon king himself. His mind conjures a terrifying image of the land's ruler, a being one must never, ever displease. While his escorts have been kind, he now feels a growing dread about meeting their formidable leader. The demon king's castle looms ahead, its dark spires cutting a jagged silhouette against the sky. They walk down a grand hall toward an empty throne flanked by powerful demonic guards. A stern, high-ranking demon with long hair and horns watches their approach with a silent, intense gaze. As his heart pounds with anxiety, Mabel playfully straightens his collar, trying to ease his nerves. A deep voice from the throne questions if he is the guest from the Empire. A guard announces the grand arrival of Demon King Readoki Everguard as Thor looks up in shock. The Demon King, a menacing figure with a strange mask, formally introduces himself from his throne. Kneeling respectfully, Thor presents himself as a guest from the Dulgarian Empire. Cutting straight to the chase, he boldly asks the Demon King what is expected of him. The ruler speculates that being sent from the Empire must mean Thor has some valuable skills to offer. With newfound confidence, Thor reveals that he has some knowledge of alchemy. He realizes this is his chance to negotiate, hoping to be hired as an alchemist instead of being a mere hostage. The Demon King's glowing eyes narrow with intrigue, clearly interested by this unexpected development. The Prime Minister Curve points out that alchemy is unknown in their lands, making Thor's presence a potential threat. Thor nervously recalls that his own empire considered alchemists completely unnecessary. He boldly asks if he's being hired, and the Demon King agrees, promising to prepare a workshop where he'll have free reign. The Demon King immediately asks what he needs to get started, leaving Thor completely stunned. Still in disbelief, he requests equipment and a nearby room, which the ruler grants without a second thought. The Demon King suggests he simply submit a list, and Thor is floored by how easily his proposal was accepted. The king then gives him his first directive: use his alchemy to create useful items that can be mass-produced for the people. Agreeing to the terms, Thor admits he has one final question for the formidable king. He thanks the ruler for his kindness, but asks why he's being so generous to a stranger from the Empire. The Demon King's answer is short and cryptic, stating his sole purpose is to learn. The ruler elaborates, revealing they seek to learn from the human wisdom that once defeated them with summoned heroes. The Demon King begins to explain the history of the Great War between demons and humans from centuries ago. He recounts how humans, desperate for an edge, summoned powerful heroes from other worlds to fight for them. These otherworldly heroes were obsessed with gaining power, relentlessly fighting demons to increase their own strength. The heroes' single-minded focus on power infected the Empire, establishing the brutal might-makes-right culture Thor knows all too well. Ultimately, the heroes' overwhelming strength led to the Demon King's defeat and the exile of all demons to the northern territories. With his quest complete, the hero returned to his own world, leaving behind a legacy of hero summoning that has since been abandoned. However, the knowledge, items, and power-obsessed ideology of the hero remained, shaping the human world for generations. The Demon King admits that despite the passage of time, they must learn from their defeat at the hands of humanity. He clarifies that he has no desire for war, but is determined to learn from the humans who once bested them. With a heavy heart, he vows to honor the sacrifices of his people by ensuring their deaths were not in vain. Thor finally grasps the core policy of the Demon King's territory: to learn and grow. Mabel confirms this is why they invite guests from the Empire, hoping to learn from them. The Demon King declares they must learn from humanity to keep pace with the Empire's power. The reality sinks in. Here, he's not just accepted but recognized as an alchemist, free to create whatever he desires. Eager to prove his worth, he offers to create something amazing as a tribute to the king's generosity. The Demon King accepts his offer, placing his trust in Thor and his unique abilities. The Prime Minister interjects, suggesting that Thor must be weary from his long journey to their kingdom. Agreeing with his advisor, the Demon King dismisses Thor, telling him to rest after his travels. With those final words, the formal audience with the Demon King concludes. Alone with his court, the Demon King's expression shifts, hinting that the real discussion is about to begin. The Demon King addresses his court, announcing their new topic of discussion is Thor Regis. His top commanders, an elf, a lizardman, and a minotaur, stand at attention, ready for their orders. A high-ranking advisor sternly warns the entire court that no harm is to come to their human guest. He commands them to treat Thor with respect, learn what they can, and uphold the pride of their people. The elf commander respectfully objects, questioning what value a human from the Empire could possibly offer them. The Prime Minister cuts in with a sinister grin, silencing the other commanders with his imposing presence. The elf commander suggests a show of force, proposing they intimidate Thor with their most powerful troops. The Demon King's power flares in response, making the elf commander sweat with sudden fear. To the commander's surprise, the ruler agrees, seeing the value in demonstrating their territory's might to Thor. The elf commander smiles, relieved and grateful that the Demon King has approved his intimidating plan. The Demon King lets out a heavy sigh, but his expression quickly hardens with resolve. He erupts in fury, reminding his court that their ancestors' arrogance almost led to their extinction. The ruler points out the human empire's relentless expansion and growing power, a threat they cannot ignore. The elf commander slams his head to the floor in apology as the king clenches his fist, focusing on Thor. The king furiously questions how anyone could claim there's nothing to learn from the empire, knowing their history. He declares that Thor will report directly to him, and they will learn from his creations to understand human technology. The Prime Minister steps forward, confirming that the ruler's orders have been heard by all. He cautions the court that while they will measure Thor's abilities, they must remain vigilant as he is from the Empire. The Prime Minister then orders Mabel to be Thor's official caretaker, watching over his every move. He notes that Thor was the one who repaired her pendant, and Mabel smiles, readily accepting her new role. Mabel confirms to the king that the pendant was made of magical silver, a rare and valuable material. The Prime Minister suggests they can confirm the truth by appraising the necklace themselves. Mabel confidently states she has no doubt, having witnessed the impossible feat with her own eyes. The Demon King questions if Thor truly created the magical silver out of thin air, without any raw materials. The Prime Minister calmly states that an appraisal will easily determine if her claim is fact or fiction. He closes his eyes, concentrating his own power to begin the appraisal. His eye snaps open in shock as the results of the appraisal flood his mind, and he calls out to Mabel. She explains the pendant is a family heirloom, but its magical properties were lost generations ago. Her explanation is met with stunned silence and confusion from the other demons in the court. The Prime Minister reveals the shocking truth. The damaged magic stone at its center is now fully restored. The Prime Minister confirms that their technology could never have repaired the water spirit stone, yet Thor managed the impossible. He holds up two fingers, explaining that Thor's arrival carries two very different and equally important implications. Mabel listens in stunned disbelief, unable to process the gravity of the situation. The first possibility is that the Empire has an entire legion of alchemists with Thor's incredible instant repair abilities. The Minotaur commander realizes that if the Empire has an army of such craftsmen, any resistance against them would be utterly hopeless. The Prime Minister then presents the second, far more intriguing possibility, as the other commanders listen with bated breath. He suggests that the human empire was simply too foolish to recognize Thor's genius and carelessly threw him away. The Demon King rebukes him, insisting they must not underestimate the humans, as the empire would never discard such a valuable asset. The Prime Minister concedes the point, vowing to remain cautious before moving on to the matter of Thor's new workshop. Meanwhile, Mabel cheerfully greets Thor, apologizing for the delay and offering to finally escort him to his new room. As they walk, Thor's attention is immediately captured by an ornate vase, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. Mabel notices his fascination, and he's momentarily startled when she asks what caught his eye. He excitedly explains that it's not just the vase, he's fascinated by every single item in the castle and their unique materials. Relieved by his genuine curiosity, Mabel smiles and suggests they get him settled in his room first. Suddenly, two imposing lizardmen guards appear, announcing they've been assigned to him by the Prime Minister. Mabel protests, arguing that their intimidating presence is unnecessary and their natural claws are weapon enough to frighten him. To her complete shock, Thor cheerfully accepts the guards, seemingly unbothered by the powerful lizardmen. He then turns to Mabel, flustered and admitting he's overwhelmed by all the new things he's seeing. Thor clarifies that his surprise was simply because this is his first time ever meeting lizardmen. Mabel is visibly moved, realizing he's the first human she's met to call them by their proper name with respect. Mabel explains that humans normally use slurs, but Thor's respectful term for the lizardmen is a first. But Thor's mind is on a practical problem. He imagines their scales must constantly snag on their clothes. His eyes light up with a new purpose. He'll use his alchemy to invent a special snag-free fabric just for them. The lizardmen and Mabel are left speechless, completely floored by his surprisingly thoughtful concern. Mabel stammers, trying to confirm if that was truly his first thought, while Thor just gives a knowing smile. He explains his fascination with the daily lives of all the different people in this new kingdom. Thor realizes that with so many unique species, each one must face its own set of everyday challenges. He renews his vow to solve these problems and create items that will fundamentally improve their world. Back in the throne room, Mabel reports to the Demon King that there isn't a single lie in Thor's words. She insists that his eyes reveal a pure desire to help all people, regardless of their race, as a true alchemist. Mabel looks at Thor, finally understanding his true nature. A blush creeps onto her face as she calls him amazing, completely won over by his kindness. She formally introduces herself as Mabel Refrain and vows to dedicate herself to helping him achieve his goals. Thor graciously accepts her offer, and Mabel looks on, deeply moved by their newfound partnership. And so, Mabel becomes the official caretaker for the man destined to change the very history of the Demon Lands. The story flashes back to a painful memory where cruel whispers mock a young elf for having human blood and no magic. A younger Mabel stands alone, enduring the hateful words that brand her a disgrace to her own kind. The vicious taunts escalate, calling her useless and demanding she leave their sight. The young girl screams in anguish, desperately pleading for the torment to end. Back in the present, Mabel wakes with a start, realizing she was reliving a painful dream from her childhood. She sits up with a gasp, realizing the painful memory was just a dream. Gazing out the window, she wonders if she will ever be free from her past trauma. She laments how her feet are always ice cold, a constant physical reminder of her struggles. With a heavy heart, she wishes she could overcome both her emotional scars and her sensitivity to the cold. She eyes a pair of fluffy slippers, feeling a bit embarrassed to wear them in front of Thor. Despite her reservations, she puts them on, determined to face the day with a smile. Elsewhere, Thor enters the castle's storehouse, his face lighting up with pure excitement. He's completely amazed by the incredible collection of items and materials piled up around him. His keen eyes spot damaged shields and broken armor, seeing not junk but endless opportunity. Overjoyed, he throws his arms up in triumph, realizing he's just hit the alchemist's jackpot. He quickly sobers, realizing this workshop is an investment from the Demon King that he must earn. With a determined grin, he vows to create something that will impress everyone, especially his new benefactor. Rummaging through the storehouse, he discovers an old book among the piles of potential materials. Giddy with excitement, he considers all the practical items he could create for his new home. He examines the book's cover, recognizing the text is from another world and likely unreadable to the demons. To his shock, he reads an advertisement for a foot bath, realizing this is a relic from a summoned hero. Stunned that such a thing exists here, he suddenly questions how he's able to read the foreign language. He realizes his appraisal skill must be translating the text, identifying the book as an e-commerce catalog. Thor connects this new ability to his evolved alchemy, which lets him read and understand any item's properties. Flipping through the pages, his eyes widen in shock as he lands on a particularly interesting item. He confirms the book is a catalog from a hero's homeland, a place called Nihon. The catalog advertises incredible recovery items, like a mask that relieves fatigue and improves sleep. A horrifying thought strikes him. This might be the secret behind the hero's overwhelming strength. He sees ads for glasses that grant supervision and a capsule for rapid sleep, realizing these items are game changers. Lost in thought, he's suddenly startled by Mabel, who has arrived with a tray of tea. She apologizes for startling him, explaining he was so engrossed in the book he didn't hear her knocking. He eagerly shows her the book, asking if she can decipher the otherworldly text, but she just looks baffled. Mabel explains that a previous Demon King collected these strange hero relics, storing them away for potential use. As he suspected, she admits the language is completely alien to her, unable to read a single character. She then gives him a deadpan look, dryly commenting on his excitement over what she considers old junk. While Mabel offers him tea, Thor's attention is immediately drawn to her fluffy leg warmers. She catches his stare, playfully asking if he's interested in the strange footwear. She admits to being sensitive to the cold, explaining it's because of poor mana circulation. Thor is taken aback, as he's never heard of such a condition before. She reveals that despite being an elf, her poor mana circulation prevents her from using magic, a trait she believes comes from her human grandmother. Fortunately, her talent for chores earned her a place in the castle under the Demon King's care. She sadly recalls how her own people ostracized her because of her mixed blood and lack of magic. Her tragic story moves Thor to tears, causing a flustered Mabel to apologize for oversharing. He suddenly realizes she must have been suffering from the cold even when they first met at the border. She quickly tries to comfort him, insisting she's proud of her human heritage and unbothered by her lack of magic. She reveals her human heritage is why she specifically requested to be the one to greet him. With a heartfelt smile, she expresses her relief that he, a man of her grandmother's race, is so kind. He reflects on how this kingdom seems to welcome outsiders, a stark contrast to his own. Flustered by her sincere gratitude, he can only manage a shy, stammering reply. She explains that newcomers are encouraged to find work that utilizes their unique talents, sparking an idea in Thor. Holding the hero's catalog, he asks Mabel if she'd be willing to participate in a little experiment. He plans to use the old, discarded shields in the storehouse as raw materials for his project. His plan is to recreate the footbath from the catalog, an item designed to help people sensitive to the cold. He carefully studies the description, noting its function is to warm the feet and body. The catalog claims the device uses water currents and vibrations to improve circulation and eliminate coldness. He decides the leftover broken shields in the storehouse are the perfect materials for his creation. Impressed by the hero's catalog, he realizes he'll need to salvage a fire and a wind magic stone for the device. His appraisal skill identifies one of the broken items as a wind shield, once capable of creating storms. The second is a flame shield, which could once spew fire but is now just as useless. Activating his alchemy, he prepares to soften the shields and extract their valuable magic stones. The metal becomes as pliable as clay in his hands, ready to be reshaped. Just then, Mabel arrives with a tub of water, ready for the experiment to begin. He proudly shows her the repurposed shield, explaining it will form the body of the new footbath. Mabel stares in disbelief, shocked that he's completely transformed one of the discarded shields. After a playful poke, he presents the finished bowl, a perfect creation born from his alchemy. He declares his plan to use the salvaged materials to replicate the otherworldly items. With intense focus, he activates his overall alchemy to produce the healthy goods from the hero's catalog. A holographic blueprint of the footbath appears before him, serving as a guide for his work. He begins refining the materials from the two broken shields to forge the device's main body. Thor visualizes the magic stone's power infusing the water, picturing the exact effect he needs to create. Realizing a perfect copy is impossible, he decides to use magic to replicate the item's core function instead. His design will use a windstone for vibrations and a firestone for warmth, mimicking the original's therapeutic effects. A flash of insight confirms that his plan is sound and the creation is possible. His creation alchemy activates, and in a brilliant burst of light, the footbath is complete. Thor proudly presents his creation, a look of pure success on his face. An appraisal reveals the footbath's stats. It uses fire and wind magic, has a 25-year lifespan, and is surprisingly durable. He already knows its capabilities, but decides to check the official stats of his new invention. Thor eagerly presents the finished footbath to Mabel, certain it will solve her problem with the cold. She's stunned by his speed, questioning if all alchemists in the Empire can create such things in under 10 minutes. He sheepishly admits he wouldn't know, as his family always forbade him from practicing his craft. A painful memory of his father's angry words flashes through his mind, warning him not to get arrogant. He explains to Mabel that he's only repeating what his father drilled into him, having never met another alchemist. Trying to be humble, he guesses there must be plenty of craftsmen with his level of skill, causing Mabel to reel back in shock. Her mind explodes at the thought of an entire empire filled with alchemists as powerful as Thor. He downplays his achievement, insisting it's no big deal since he only copied an item from the hero's catalog. Thor proudly presents the footbath to a stunned Mabel, offering it as a personal gift. She's completely floored, unable to believe he'd give her a replica of a hero's legendary item. He cheerfully reassures her, asking to be led to a water source for a proper demonstration. Arriving at a grand fountain, he prepares to explain how his new invention works. However, the Prime Minister appears, his stern gaze fixed on the alchemist and his creation. Thor decides this is a perfect chance to impress his superiors, since he used their materials anyway. The Prime Minister admits his curiosity was too strong to ignore, wanting to see the item in action. Thor explains that by pouring mana into the firestone, the water will heat up and produce steam. He begins the process, kneeling down to fill the basin with water from the fountain. With the water now steaming, he encourages a nervous Mabel to put her feet in and test its effects. Mabel removes her fluffy leg warmers, preparing to dip her feet into the warm water. A blush creeps onto her face as she nervously lowers her bare feet toward the basin. Thor instructs her to pour her own mana into the windstone to activate the vibration function. As she dips her foot in, both Thor and the Prime Minister watch with keen interest. She's immediately surprised by the pleasant warmth, and he reminds her about the windstone. Suddenly, the water begins to churn with powerful vibrations, causing her to jolt. Her eyes fly open in shock as the unexpected and intense sensations overwhelm her. She cries out that the water currents are creating a surprisingly strong reaction. Thor explains this is the magic stone's effect, while Mabel admits her body is moving on its own. She clenches her skirt, unable to withstand the overwhelming power of the device. A wave of warmth spreads through her body, an amazing sensation she's never felt before. Tears of pure ecstasy stream down her face as the device's power becomes almost too much to bear. Lost in the moment, she feels as if she's been transported to a state of pure bliss. The narrator reveals a profound and powerful transformation is occurring within her body. Thor watches, knowing his creation is finally curing her lifelong sensitivity to the cold. The Prime Minister, witnessing her intense reaction, asks with genuine concern if she's all right. She stammers that she's okay, revealing the incredible news that her mana has finally begun to circulate correctly. The Prime Minister is stunned by this revelation, recalling his extensive knowledge of the summoned heroes. He asks Thor to confirm the item's origin, shocked that a simple, healthy good could affect her mana. He ponders aloud, noting that while the items were known to heal fatigue, there's no record of them ever influencing mana. Thor confidently tells the flustered Prime Minister that of course a hero's item would be this powerful. He explains that since heroes possess immense mana, even their mundane items would be extraordinary. The Prime Minister collapses in disbelief, admitting their best healers couldn't fix what this simple device just did. Thor just smiles cheerfully at the Prime Minister's utter confusion. He internally reflects on the Prime Minister's shock, wondering just how advanced the hero's technology truly was. Meanwhile, Mabel is still lost in the sensation, feeling it's not nearly enough. She finally asks to stop, finding the feeling too intense as the Prime Minister checks on her condition. Standing up refreshed, she announces her mana is finally flowing and wonders if she can now use magic. Her hope quickly turns to shock as she realizes she's still unable to cast any spells. With a sad look, she clenches her fist, admitting she had given up on that dream long ago. Thor encourages her to try again, certain that this time things will be different. A massive gust of wind explodes from her hands, sending the Prime Minister reeling in shock. The powerful spell leaves a trail of destruction as Mabel stares blankly at the result. Both Thor and the Prime Minister can only stare in utter disbelief, calling out her name. She looks down at her own hands, completely stunned to see magic flowing from them for the first time. Thor rushes to her side, asking with genuine concern if she's okay after the unexpected display of power. With tears in her eyes, she remembers the constant taunts calling her useless and a failure. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she suddenly embraces a startled Thor, thanking him with all her heart. She joyfully declares that she can finally be useful to her kingdom, hailing Thor as her savior. She tearfully confesses that she lied before. The inability to use magic had always been a source of deep pain and shame. The Prime Minister dryly observes that Thor seems to be in a tight spot, caught in Mabel's grateful embrace. She quickly pulls away, apologizing profusely, while a flustered Thor tries to reassure her. Mabel joyfully exclaims that for the first time, her feet are completely warm, the chronic coldness gone. A blushing Thor points out that the device seems to have fixed more than just her mana circulation. She beams with happiness, while Thor admits his greatest joy is seeing people happy with his creations. The Prime Minister's expression hardens, warning that an item capable of awakening magic is a dangerous weapon in the wrong hands. Thor is stunned, insisting he only created it to help Mabel with her personal problem. The Prime Minister cuts him off, declaring the powerful footbath will now be confiscated and managed by the kingdom. To avoid causing trouble for Mabel, Thor reluctantly hands over his invention without protest. The Prime Minister clarifies they will purchase the item for a fair price, offering to pay him in the local currency. Both Thor and the Prime Minister are left equally stunned, completely baffled by the other's reaction. The alchemist is floored by the very concept of being paid for simply doing what he loves. The Prime Minister watches with concern, unable to understand Thor's extreme shock over fair compensation. Thor sheepishly explains that in the Empire, his skills were always undervalued and poorly paid. He clenches his fist, realizing this kingdom offers him both creative freedom and the rewards he was always denied. A memory of his old life surfaces, where he was forbidden from innovating and forced to follow rigid repair orders. Thor makes a bold counteroffer, requesting payment in magic stones instead of gold coins. The Prime Minister's caution returns, noting that magic stones can easily be used to create dangerous weapons. To ease his concerns, Thor suggests a petition system where he would formally request the exact materials he needs. He lays out his grand vision. In exchange for unlimited materials, the demon realm will have full use of all his future inventions. The Prime Minister stares intently at Thor, processing the alchemist's bold proposition. He questions if Thor truly has no issue with his inventions being used by the demon races. Thor confidently states that an item's purpose is to be used, and he wants to help people with their problems. His true ambition is revealed, to create things that will surpass the legendary items of the heroes. The Prime Minister agrees to take this proposal directly to the Demon King for a final decision. In the throne room, the Demon King erupts in shock, learning Mabel's magic was awakened by one of Thor's creations. The Prime Minister confirms the news, admitting he can barely believe what he witnessed firsthand. The court is reminded that Mabel's ailment was incurable for years, even by the realm's most powerful healers. Curve explains that Thor's device used a combination of two different types of magic to achieve the miracle. The Demon King recounts the device's function, using a firestone for heat and a windstone for circulation. The Prime Minister explains Thor's technique, dissolving the essence of both fire and wind magic directly into water. The Minotaur commander reels back in shock, unable to comprehend how such a feat is even possible. Curve deduces that Mabel's natural affinity for water allowed her to easily absorb the infused mana. The Demon King realizes Thor's creation was a multi-layered solution, curing her physical ailment and her magical blockage. The Prime Minister concludes that Thor's skill is so rare, he must be one of the most powerful alchemists in the world. The Demon King remains skeptical, reminding his court that Thor only replicated a hero's mundane item. Curve nervously counters that their historical texts on the hero's items never mentioned such incredible power-ups. Overwhelmed by the implications, the Prime Minister leans against a pillar, his confidence completely shattered. He recalls their ancient scriptures, which mention healing magic, but nothing that could fundamentally alter a person's magical core. The Prime Minister's world is turned upside down, questioning his own knowledge and the very history he's sworn to preserve. The Demon King, still baffled by the situation, decides to give the footbath to Mabel regardless. Curve questions the decision, but the king won't take away something beneficial from his precious subordinate. The ruler notes how strange it is for Mabel to trust a human so quickly, surprising his advisor. The Prime Minister explains that due to past discrimination, it took Mabel a long time to even trust them. Seeing this unique bond, the Prime Minister presents a bold proposal to his king. He suggests arranging a marriage between Mabel and Thor to secure the alchemist's loyalty. The Demon King's expression darkens as he furiously rejects the very idea. He erupts in anger, refusing to let his precious friend be deceived by a human. As Curve tries to calm him, the king declares he can no longer stand by and will take action. With grim determination, the Demon King announces he will judge Thor Regis himself. The story flashes back to the Empire, showing the opulent ducal manor Thor left behind. Back home, Thor's father enjoys a lavish meal, feeling a sense of profound relief now that his son is gone. He smugly assumes Thor is meeting a grisly end at the hands of the demons. With a cruel smile, he toasts to what he considers a fitting demise for his useless son. A knight interrupts the butler, inquiring about a magic sword repair requested by the imperial court. She specifies that the sword belongs to Her Highness and must be restored to its legendary hero-era state. The butler feigns recollection, promising to check on the status of the important request. Elsewhere, a craftsman explains that every alchemist workshop in the land has refused the difficult repair job. The news that the sword cannot be fixed is met with outrage from the ducal family. The butler furiously confronts the craftsman, demanding to know why the job failed when a report claimed it was nearly finished. The craftsman nervously explains that one of their employees was secretly working on the magic sword. He admits that due to constant budget cuts, they had to be resourceful, prompting the butler to demand he summon the employee. The craftsman reveals the skilled worker has already retired, sending the butler into a rage for letting such a talent go. He fondly recalls the young man's name was Thor, a memory that brings a slight smile to his face. The butler's eyes widen in shock, realizing the employee's true identity is Thor, the Duke's own son. The craftsman is confused, recalling it was the Duke's household that created the difficult circumstances for Thor in the first place. He remembers Thor's diligence, meticulously inspecting and repairing items without any official record. It's revealed Thor was under orders from his own family to produce results without using his noble name or attracting attention. As the craftsman suggests contacting the Duke's household, the butler furiously silences him, forbidding him from meddling in noble affairs. The butler seethes with frustration, realizing the very family that needed the sword fixed is the reason the only man who could fix it is gone. The butler furiously declares the Duke's household will find the finest alchemists, ordering the craftsman to forget Thor's name. The next day, he's met with failure as the Empire's #1 workshop admits the repair is beyond their skill. The head craftsman points out that while some cracks were fixed, repairing a magic sword is no simple task. He explains the blade is forged from metal imbued with powerful magical attributes like fire and earth. To fix it, an alchemist must perfectly match and fuse the magical properties of the metal itself. To the butler's horror, the craftsman reveals that no one in the Empire has that kind of ability anymore. He laments that the art of restoring magic swords was lost as the status of alchemist declined over the years. A thought strikes the craftsman. They should ask the person who managed to repair the initial cracks. He recalls warning his friends years ago that the Empire would lose its treasures if it failed to nurture its talent. The butler breaks into a cold sweat, realizing the catastrophic mistake his master has made. The head craftsman is in awe of the repair, noting how the cracks were fixed so perfectly they've vanished completely. The butler panics, realizing the only person with this skill has already been sent away as a sacrifice. The master craftsman desperately begs for an introduction to the genius alchemist, but the butler furiously shuts him down. The butler loses his composure, insisting he doesn't care about a perfect repair, only that it looks fixed. The craftsman confirms a cosmetic fix is possible, but warns that using different materials will create problems. The butler dismisses the warning, arguing the sword is only for rituals and won't be under any real stress. The craftsman sighs in resignation, agreeing to the job on the condition they receive a formal request for a cosmetic-only repair. Cornered and flustered, the butler grits his teeth and agrees to the craftsman's condition. The craftsman smiles slyly, confirming this is to ensure his workshop won't be blamed for the inevitable failure. The scene cuts back to the Grand Castle in the Demon King's territory, where Thor's fate is unfolding. A blushing Mabel playfully offers to feed Thor a spoonful of food. He accepts the bite, chewing thoughtfully as she watches with anticipation. Thor listens, flustered, as she explains her desire to repay him for awakening her magic. He considers her offer and asks if he could request a different room from the Demon King. Mabel explains that all the nearby rooms are currently occupied, so it would take some time. With a serious expression, Thor realizes he needs a dedicated manufacturing space to avoid any accidents. He worries that using the treasury as a workshop could damage the priceless hero relics with his alchemical processes. Changing his mind, he asks for a tour of the castle instead, and Mabel eagerly agrees. She passionately vows to dedicate her life to fulfilling his every wish, leaving him completely stunned. With a cheerful hum, she clears the table and promises to return shortly with tea. As Mabel leaves, Thor sits alone, pondering his need for a proper manufacturing room. He recalls that the legendary heroes also possessed a similar ability, an item known as a storage box. Clutching the hero's catalog, he wishes it contained a magic item that could help him build a workshop. An idea strikes him, and he begins flipping through the book, hoping to find something useful in the storage section. His eyes widen in astonishment as he realizes he's looking at a piece of truly lost technology from the hero era. The catalog describes a miraculous item that can hold countless objects without adding any weight, all perfectly sorted. He realizes that recreating this item would be a huge step toward understanding the hero's lost technology. He lands on an advertisement for a White Rabbit small-size storage room, a compact unit with a vast interior. Stunned, he confirms the item's function is identical to the hero's legendary storage ability. He reads the specifications, noting its unassuming exterior hides a massive interior space with metal sliding doors. The catalog boasts of a storage unit with a size beyond comprehension, strong enough to hold 1,000 rabbits. Thor reels back in shock, trying to process the concept of a separate dimension of space. He realizes this item is just like the hero's legendary storage box, a direct portal to another space. He speculates the rabbit theme is a reference to the large, horned rabbits that heroes first fought in this world. Though he doubts he can make a perfect copy, Thor clenches his fist, determined to try and replicate the incredible item. With intense focus, he activates his overall alchemy to begin the creation process. He immediately hits a snag, realizing with frustration that he doesn't have enough dark mana for the job. His appraisal skill confirms it. He meets the earth and wind mana requirements, but lacks the necessary dark mana. Thor understands why, recalling that dark mana was almost non-existent in the Empire where he grew up. Crossing his arms with a sigh, he admits that this unexpected limitation has put him in a real pickle. A sudden powerful presence makes the very air tremble as someone arrives unannounced. Thor laments his lack of dark mana, wishing someone with an abundance of it was nearby. As if on cue, the Demon King himself appears, announcing he has come to speak with Thor. A system notification suddenly confirms the required dark mana has been absorbed, leaving a stunned Thor completely baffled. Startled by the unexpected turn of events, the alchemist turns to face his powerful visitor. He recalls the overwhelming aura from their first meeting, finally connecting the dots. Thor instinctively kneels, but the king tells him to rise, explaining his visit is unofficial. The alchemist's keen eyes analyze the king's attire, recognizing his robes and mask are powerful magic items. His instincts confirm it. The Demon King's very presence radiates an immense, dignified power. The Demon King begins to state his purpose for this clandestine meeting. The Demon King expresses his sincere gratitude, revealing Mabel is a precious childhood friend. Thor humbly replies that he's just happy he could repay the kindness Mabel has shown him. His eyes sparkle with genuine sincerity, revealing the purity of his intentions. Thor becomes flustered, insisting he doesn't deserve such high praise from the king. The king notes that, unlike previous humans who were terrified, Thor seems completely at ease in his presence. This unusual calmness leads the Demon King to call the young alchemist strange. With a sly smile, Thor cryptically asks if the king has figured him out. The king's suspicion is piqued, wondering if Thor is indeed plotting something behind his calm facade. His suspicion instantly turns to fury as he accuses Thor of secretly plotting against them. Panicked, Thor quickly holds up the hero's catalog, trying to explain his true intentions. He excitedly reveals his true intention was to create the item shown in the catalog. He eagerly asks for permission to build the storage unit, intending to transform its interior into his workshop. The Demon King begins to question him, and Thor eagerly awaits his words. The Demon King calls him strange, baffled by the alchemist's sparkling-eyed enthusiasm. The king directly confronts him, asking if he truly intends to create items that surpass those of the heroes. With unwavering confidence, Thor confirms that is exactly what he intends to do. He holds up the book, explaining they have the perfect guide, an e-commerce catalog from the hero's world. The Demon King questions his sanity, reminding him the heroes hailed from a technologically superior world. Thor uses his creation for Mabel as an example, explaining the footbath's design came from the catalog. He clenches his fist with resolve, explaining that by recreating these items, they can begin to understand how the hero's technology works. The Demon King concedes that the heroes were indeed beings of a higher order. Thor's eyes blaze with resolve, promising to understand their power and evolve alchemy itself. He gets lost in a fantasy of opening his own bustling alchemy shop right in the heart of the demon lands. The alchemist explains his true passion is seeing people use his creations so he can refine them based on their experiences. He snaps out of it, embarrassed that his passion for alchemy always sends him into a daydream. The Demon King erupts in laughter, finding the idea of a man from the Empire surpassing the heroes utterly fascinating. His amusement turns serious as he declares that if Thor's claims are true, he has a duty to act. Thor looks on in disbelief as the Demon King grants him permission to pursue his grand ambition. With a confident grin, the Demon King formally accepts Thor's bold and audacious goal. Tears of gratitude stream down Thor's face, moved by the king's unexpected faith in him. The Demon King officially grants Thor permission to build his storage room, provided it serves as a workshop. Wasting no time, Thor grabs a massive chunk of metal, shocking the king with his intent to start immediately. A flustered Thor points out the king just gave him permission, leaving the ruler momentarily speechless. He reveals his materials are salvaged metal, planning to create a vast interior space regardless of the unit's outer shell. With the dark mana he absorbed from the king, Thor prepares to activate his alchemy. Just then, Mabel returns with a tray of tea. walking in on the intense scene. As the king questions Thor's haste, Mabel calmly explains that once the alchemist is focused, he's an unstoppable force. The king's curiosity is piqued, prompting him to ask for more insight into the strange human's behavior. Mabel confidently tells the king that Thor is a person who truly understands the needs of the demon races. She fondly recalls Thor's desire to create practical items for them, like scale-friendly clothing for the lizardmen. She explains that Thor sees the true nature of things, wanting to create items to help the demon races. The demon king is taken aback, surprised a human would show such concern for the lizardmen. Mabel passionately pleads with her king to believe in Thor, her sincerity moving the ruler. Back in the room, Thor visualizes the exact dimensions of the storage unit he's about to create. A system notification confirms his materials are finalized, and the creation process is set to begin. He mentally outlines the process, using different mana types to forge the space, structure, and atmosphere. He focuses intently, imagining every single property of the item, from its color to its mass. With a fierce look of concentration, he executes his overall alchemy to forge the storage room. An appraisal reveals his creation is a highly rated item with a separate interior space and a 100-year lifespan. Despite his success, he admits his version lacks the original's finer details, feeling it still inferior to the hero's tech. Thor proudly announces his creation is complete, a step toward his goal of surpassing hero technology. He smirks, acknowledging the vast difference in quality when it comes to items from the hero's world. The Demon King and Mabel stare in awe, unable to believe he created the item on the spot. The king remains skeptical, doubting such a small object could possibly function as a full-sized workshop. He recalls the legends of the hero's storage box, an item with seemingly infinite capacity. Thor confidently asks the king to consider the legendary storage items the heroes were known to possess. The king is floored, questioning if the empire is filled with alchemists capable of manipulating space itself. Thor explains his creation has a similar function, though he admits he's unsure of its quality since it's his first attempt. He speculates that such a feat would be impossible in the Empire due to the scarcity of dark mana. Dismissing the topic of the Empire, Thor asks for permission to inspect the interior, which the stunned king grants. He reflects that creating this item was only possible because he absorbed the Demon King's abundant dark mana. With a cheerful wave to the king, Mabel and Thor prepare to inspect the interior of his new creation. Thor slides open the metal door, revealing a pitch-black space that defies the object's small size. Stepping inside, both he and Mabel are stunned by the impossibly vast empty room contained within the small box. Mabel joyfully runs across the expansive floor, exclaiming that not even the royal treasury holds such a wondrous item. As Mabel marvels at the space, Thor is lost in thought, contemplating the sheer genius of the hero's technology. She excitedly asks if his true ambition is to study this technology and eventually create things that surpass it. He smiles humbly, admitting he has a long way to go before he can match the hero's legendary infinite storage boxes. Thor clarifies that while his skills don't match the legendary heroes, he's confident he can replicate the commercial items from their world. Unbothered by the technical details, a gleeful Mabel twirls in the open space, ready to share a happy thought. Thor explains his plan to apply this technology to create portable storage bags, asking Mabel to be his official tester. Mabel is left utterly speechless by his incredible offer. She panics, insisting she's unworthy of such a gift, but he explains her help is invaluable to his research. The idea that he considers her so important leaves her completely flabbergasted. Her mind completely short-circuits, overwhelmed by his sincere request. Composing herself, she admits that while he's full of surprises, she's secretly thrilled by his offer. Their conversation is cut short by the Demon King's booming voice from outside, demanding to know what's happening. The king declares that as ruler, it's his duty to personally inspect the safety of this strange new space. Satisfied with their answer, the Demon King announces his intention to enter and inspect the interior himself. Stepping inside, the king is stunned by the vast, brightly lit space, comparing its size to the royal arena. The Demon King expresses his awe, admitting he's amazed by the vast space contained within the small object. A system notification suddenly alerts Thor that an SS rarity item has been detected and will be automatically stored. The Demon King's powerful aura seems to trigger the storage unit's unexpected function. The system confirms his legendary robe and mask, both providing elemental resistance, have been absorbed. Thor stares in utter shock, realizing his creation just stripped the Demon King of his powerful gear. In a flash of light, the king's imposing robes vanish, revealing a completely different figure standing in his place. As the mask falls away, Thor struggles to process the unbelievable transformation. The true form of the Demon King is revealed. A striking young woman with horns and a regal uniform. Thor finally comprehends the truth, realizing he is face to face with the true identity of Demon King Lukier. Mabel is completely overwhelmed, her mind reeling from the shocking revelation about her king. Back in the present, the three of them are left to deal with the awkward aftermath of the shocking reveal. The Demon King, Lukier, crosses her arms with a blush, reluctantly forgiving Thor for the incident. Thor kneels apologetically, accepting full responsibility for his creation accidentally disrobing the ruler. He nervously admits that in his excitement, he completely forgot about the item's auto-sorting feature. The alchemist explains his creation is programmed to automatically store any high-rarity items it detects. Because of this feature, the shed identified the Demon King's powerful gear as treasure to be collected. He clarifies that this is why her legendary robes and mask were instantly absorbed into the storage unit. The memory of the event causes the Demon King to crouch down, hiding her face in utter embarrassment. Meanwhile, a panicked Mabel had been running around in circles, completely overwhelmed by the chaos. Thor had to repeatedly apologize while explaining the technical mishap just to get them to calm down. A blushing Lukier reluctantly forgives Thor, admitting he didn't mean any harm. She explains her imposing disguise is necessary, as her true form wouldn't command respect from the Empire. It's revealed that her true appearance is a closely guarded secret, known only to her most trusted inner circle. Mabel tries to reassure her, explaining that while Lukier's power is immense, her physical development is just slow. Lukier reveals she followed her advisor's counsel, using a magical item to project a more fearsome image. She turns to Thor, declaring she wants an outsider's honest opinion. The Demon King addresses him by his full name, preparing to ask a very direct question. With a serious expression, she asks for his unfiltered thoughts on her true appearance. Thor is left completely speechless, struggling to process the unexpected question and her true form. He finally answers, declaring with awe that he feels like he's just witnessed the beauty of a goddess. He explains that as an alchemist, he always valued functional beauty, but her appearance has completely redefined his standards. Thor admits that in the face of her natural beauty, the elegance of his own creations feels utterly insignificant. A flustered Lukier tries to dismiss his compliments, unable to process his sincere admiration. She grabs her face in embarrassment, completely overwhelmed by his unexpected and poetic praise. Lukier lashes out, claiming a genius like him could never understand the pain of hiding behind a mask and living a lie. Her emotional outburst strikes a chord with Thor, who solemnly apologizes for his insensitivity. He then stuns her by confessing that he too has been forced to live a lie. Thor reveals the grim truth. He wasn't sent to the demon realm as a guest, but as a human sacrifice. He recalls his father's cold dismissal, having been cast out as a disgrace and ordered to die. Both Lukier and Mabel are left completely stunned, their expressions frozen in shock by his tragic backstory. He explains that in the Empire, where strength is everything, his lack of fighting skill made him worthless in his family's eyes. Thor admits that despite being sent to die, he considered his arrival in the demon realm a stroke of good fortune. Lukier is completely baffled by his cheerful acceptance of what should have been a death sentence. He smiles, revealing that here he finally experienced the joy of creating things and seeing them appreciated. Thor looks at his hand, realizing that in this new land, he was finally able to work as a true alchemist. A stunned Mabel asks for confirmation, unable to believe he was sent as both a hostage and a sacrifice. He calmly meets her gaze, confirming that everything he told them is the absolute truth. Mabel clasps her hands in distress, admitting she cannot comprehend his reasoning for being so open. Her mind races, completely unable to understand why he would be happy about his grim situation. Kneeling before him, she questions why he would reveal the truth instead of using his supposed status as an envoy to his advantage. Thor playfully winks, asking them to keep his status as a sacrifice a secret. His casual request leaves a stunned Mabel completely at a loss for words. He explains that if his secret got out, it would change how he's treated and tarnish the Empire's reputation. Lukier listens with a nervous expression, considering his bold proposition of mutual secrecy. Mabel covers her mouth, finally understanding the brilliance of his strategic move. Thor internally notes that by protecting each other's secrets, he can finally earn their complete trust. The narrator reveals Lukier is just a young girl who hides behind a powerful facade due to her own insecurities. He sees a parallel between her hiding her identity and his own hidden, unappreciated life back in the Empire. Lukier suddenly erupts in laughter, finding his plan to trade secrets utterly absurd yet brilliant. With a blush and tears in her eyes, she leans in close, demanding to know what's really going on in his mind. Lukier playfully teases that his own shocking revelation was far more cruel than her accidental disrobing. A blushing Thor retorts that she's the one being mean for laughing at their predicament. With a confident wink, she admits his bold and honest approach has left her with no choice but to believe him. He looks up with hope, asking for confirmation of her trust, but she playfully dismisses his question. She affirms her trust, explaining that a true ruler wouldn't doubt someone who was so vulnerable with them first. Moved by her words, Thor sincerely declares that he believes she is an excellent demon king. Lukier's expression hardens as she turns to Mabel, ordering her to ensure their secrets are never revealed. Flustered by his praise, she quickly dismisses his flattery with a blush. She then makes a grand declaration, placing Thor under her direct supervision as a precious guest of the kingdom. Mabel eagerly accepts the order, while a stunned Thor looks on, moved by the king's official protection. Lukier winks, explaining that inside this special room, their true identities are a shared secret. Thor understands this isolated space is a true sanctuary, allowing the king to finally be herself. A sudden realization dawns on Mabel, her face lighting up with a brilliant idea. She excitedly proposes they use the room for tea parties, allowing the king to speak freely with Thor. A blushing Lukier admits that the idea of a private tea party sounds incredibly fun. Thor immediately offers to create a dedicated small-sized storage room just for their gatherings. Mabel panics, insisting her only goal was to provide a relaxing space for them to enjoy food together. The king reluctantly agrees to hold tea party meetings in the room, formally thanking her alchemist. As a sign of their new bond, Lukier gently places her hand over Thor's in a gesture of trust. The three of them share a happy smile, united by their secret and the promise of future gatherings. The narrator explains these tea time meetings marked a turning point for the Demon Kingdom's future. Later that night, the Prime Minister is urgently summoned to the throne room by the Demon King. The king confirms the summons is about Thor, revealing he has gained new insight into the alchemist. The Prime Minister eagerly asks about the new creation, but the king tells him to calm down and listen closely. Composing himself, the Prime Minister guesses it was another health-related item, but the king denies it. The Prime Minister is taken aback, trying to guess what other kind of item Thor could have made. He then guesses it was a simple accessory, but the king reveals Thor created a legendary dimensional storage box. The Prime Minister's mind reels, connecting the creation to the hero's fabled storage boxes with infinite capacity. The sheer scale of this revelation causes the usually composed Prime Minister to erupt in utter shock. The king is startled by the sudden outburst, pointing out that he's the one who should be shocked by the Prime Minister's reaction. The Prime Minister reminds the king of his promise to remain calm, pointing out he knows exactly what a dimensional storage box is. He passionately explains that this very ability to pull endless supplies from thin air was a major source of the hero's power. He recounts an old demon saying, when facing a hero, expect them to pull out 100 items from weapons to potions. The Demon King grimly realizes that if every hero had possessed that skill, the demon race would have gone extinct. The king confirms his awareness, adding that the skill was so rare that not even every legendary hero possessed it. The Prime Minister is still reeling, unable to believe that Thor Regis actually managed to create that very same storage box. His hand clenches into a fist, fueled by a sudden terrifying realization. He declares the situation is grave, insisting that Thor Regis must not be allowed to monopolize this power. The king slumps in defeat, weakly revealing that Thor already promised to create a personal storage item for both him and Mabel. The king calmly tells his frantic advisor not to worry, leaving the Prime Minister demanding an explanation. The Prime Minister despairs, feeling the very concept of rare items is collapsing around him. The Demon King calmly tells Kelvy to compose himself, apologizing for causing such a shock. The king then reveals that Thor also sent a personal message for his trusted advisor. He explains Thor wishes to act reasonably as an alchemist in service to the demon realm. The king recalls Thor's vow to be their ally, admitting his sincerity was too convincing to ignore. The Prime Minister confirms that this means the king has personally evaluated and approved of the alchemist. The ruler agrees, adding that he believes Thor is trustworthy just as he was with the footbath. Kelvy sighs, admitting he's never met such a troublingly unpredictable person before. The Demon King smiles knowingly, acknowledging that this is simply Thor's unique nature. The Prime Minister leans back, conceding that while Thor is a pain, he can't help but be fascinated by him. The Prime Minister notices the King's unusually cheerful demeanor. He inquires if something transpired between the King and Thor. The King confirms they had a normal conversation, becoming allies. A flashback shows Thor and the King shaking hands, understanding each other's struggles. The King explains that's the extent of their interaction. The scene shifts to Mabel setting a table, seemingly deep in thought. Thor asks Mabel what's on her mind. Mabel recalls the previous Demon King's harsh treatment of Lukier. She expresses surprise at seeing Lukier genuinely laugh for the first time. The Prime Minister acknowledges Mabel's observation. The Prime Minister explains the previous Demon King forced Lukier into brutal trials against demon beasts. He showed no mercy, pushing her to her absolute limits in his quest for power. Thor grimly remarks that her story reminds him of his own, as his father also demanded he become a powerful fighter. He recalls the brutal training sessions where he genuinely feared for his life, ultimately forcing him to flee his home. Thor questions why she needs a disguise if she's already strong, but Mabel insists her power is undeniable. She clarifies that while Lukier's physical prowess is debated, her magical ability is absolutely unmatched. Mabel warns that such people exist everywhere, but there's one specific individual in the demon realm he must be cautious of. She explains that certain factions within the demon territory only respect physical might and would dismiss Lukier's true form as weak. Mabel introduces Flame General Ryzenga, a towering warrior with Ifrit's blood renowned for his martial prowess. Thor pales, connecting the name to the legendary Ifrit who fiercely battled the heroes at the Flaming Mountain Fortress. Mabel reassures him that not everyone in the Flame General's clan is obsessed with strength, but Thor still hopes to avoid him. She explains their clan is highly respected for their power, being descendants of the Ifrit who guarded the legendary Flaming Mountain Fortress. With a knowing smile, she cryptically adds that some members of the clan are perhaps a little too kind. As Mabel begins to make another grand vow, Thor silently begs her not to start again. She quickly changes the subject, excitedly confirming their plans for a castle tour the next day. Later that night, the demon castle stands silently under the glow of the full moon. While escorting him through the castle halls, Mabel suddenly calls out his name. He turns to thank her for all her help and companionship throughout the day. With a friendly wink, she asks him to drop the formal honorifics when they speak. As a flustered Thor protests, she playfully shushes him, insisting formality is unnecessary between them. She explains that by the Demon King's order, his status as a special guest is higher than hers. With a gentle smile, Thor agrees to her terms, placing himself under her care. A delighted Mabel beams, thrilled that he has agreed to speak with her more casually. She then leans in suddenly, closing the distance between them and catching him completely off guard. Taking his hand, she earnestly asks him to stay in the demon realm forever. With a deep blush, she confesses her personal wish to remain by his side as well. Her heartfelt confession leaves Thor completely flustered, his face turning bright red in surprise. Overcome with embarrassment, Mabel quickly changes the subject and wishes him a good night. She then dashes down the corridor, leaving the stunned alchemist standing alone in the hallway. Thor clutches his chest, admitting to himself that his heart is still racing from her bold declaration. Thor reflects on the whirlwind of events since his arrival, from finding the hero's catalog to creating his own magic items. He admits to himself that he's truly satisfied here, even considering Mabel's offer to stay forever. With renewed purpose, he vows to use his alchemy to improve the demon realm, having no desire to return to the Empire. His motivation is simple: to help Mabel, Lukier, and all the people who have finally accepted him. The scene shifts back in time to the Dalgarian Empire, just as Thor was arriving in the demon territory. Inside a lavish guest house in the imperial capital, the Empire's nobility are enjoying a grand party. The idle chatter of the nobles is suddenly interrupted as a guest looks on in surprise. A noblewoman smiles coyly, her attention drawn to the commotion. Another guest gestures animatedly, adding to the buzz that fills the grand hall. The crowd parts in awe as the number one noble in the Empire, Duke Vargas Regus, makes his imposing entrance. The nobles praise the Duke's supposed loyalty, celebrating his decision to sacrifice his own son for the Empire. A woman wonders if the Duke feels any grief, while the butler listens with a dark, troubled expression. The crowd erupts in applause, completely won over by the Duke's grand gesture. They declare the Duke's family a shining example for all nobles, the very honor of the empire. The fawning continues as the nobles keep clapping, basking in the Duke's reflected glory. As the thunderous applause echoes, the Duke stands proudly while his butler remains silent and troubled. The Duke internally revels in the attention, confirming this is exactly the praise he sought. With a smug grin, he decides this level of adoration is perfectly fitting for a man of his station. The Duke walks away, callously referring to his son as a stain that has finally been removed, shocking his butler. The butler nervously tries to interject, attempting to remind the Duke of Thor's valuable alchemical skills. The Duke's face contorts with rage at the mere mention of his son. He furiously declares Thor's only purpose was to die, then dismisses the shaken butler. The butler's attention shifts as another noble speaks of a legendary sword princess. A sudden commotion announces the arrival of Her Highness, who appears on a balcony. The crowd parts for the 30th Queen of the Empire, Her Highness Rihanna. Nobles whisper in awe of her legendary beauty and powerful light magic. A noblewoman swoons, captivated by the Queen's combination of strength and elegance. The Queen's cold gaze sweeps the room, ordering an unwelcome guest to be removed at once. Unfazed, Duke Vargas smirks, revealing himself as the target of her command. The noble caught in the middle freezes in terror, trapped between two powerful figures. The Duke furiously pulls rank, but the guards coldly inform him that the Queen's orders are absolute. As they drag him away, the Duke struggles in disbelief, while a noblewoman questions the sudden commotion. He thrashes against their grip, angrily demanding they release him at once. Desperate, he calls out to the Queen, pleading to know what he has done to deserve this humiliation. The Queen turns with a cold glare, questioning how he dares feign ignorance after endangering her and her comrades. She reminds him of a past incident, specifically her request to have a legendary magic sword repaired. The Duke nervously recalls the request, confirming his family was indeed tasked with the important repair. She then reveals the sword couldn't handle her power and shattered upon use, a revelation that leaves the Duke stunned. The entire room falls silent as the other nobles stare in fear, realizing the gravity of the Queen's accusation. She recounts how the faulty sword nearly led to her death against a demonic beast, saved only by her loyal comrades. She reveals her investigation found the sword was shoddily repaired with simple metal, causing it to shatter. The Duke's face contorts in horror, sweat pouring down as the truth of his negligence is exposed. The butler grimly realizes the glory they gained from sacrificing Thor is now crumbling away. A furious noble questions the Duke's incompetence, highlighting the life-threatening nature of a faulty weapon. The crowd's whispers turn to condemnation, criticizing the Regas family for their dishonest and dangerous work. Another noble demands punishment, accusing the Duke of deliberate deception to maintain his reputation. Desperate, the Duke tries to deflect, insisting the alchemist who performed the repair is the one to blame. His desperate plea is met with the Queen's cold, unwavering stare. The Queen calmly states she sent an envoy to confirm responsibility and received a formal document. She unfurls a scroll bearing the Duke's own seal, a contract admitting only a cosmetic repair was done and accepting all blame. The Duke reels in disbelief as the crowd erupts in a shocked murmur. The Queen gestures to the shattered blade, pointing out its strange and inconsistent condition. She explains an alchemist informed her that the sword was only partially repaired, causing it to break at the weak points. In fact, the only sections that withstood her powerful magic were the parts that had been expertly restored. She reminds the Duke she had warned his household of her intent to use the sword in actual combat. The Duke stammers, desperately trying to argue the sword was only meant for ceremonial use. The Queen reveals her life was saved solely because of the alchemist who performed the initial, proper repair. With a chilling smile, she demands the Duke reveal the name and location of this skilled artisan. The Duke sweats, claiming he doesn't know the person, suggesting it was just a wandering alchemist. Unconvinced, the Queen coldly dismisses his excuse and orders him out of her sight. The humiliated Duke storms from the party, slamming the doors behind him. He immediately confronts his terrified butler, who stammers his name in fear. The Duke erupts in a fit of rage, demanding to know what his butler has done. He refuses to listen to any excuses, placing the shocked butler under house arrest. He furiously blames his aide for the shoddy repair and for leaving evidence that ruined his name. Dismissing the butler, the Duke smirks, already confident he has a way to salvage the situation. He laments that their family's glory has hit rock bottom, all while his butler watches in despair. With a look of grim determination, he vows to achieve new results and prove his value to the Empire. He reveals he has a new plan, one that will supposedly benefit the entire Empire. The Duke schemes to manipulate the demon races, believing he can use them to restore his fame and climb even higher. The next day, the tour of the vast Demon King's territory begins. A cheerful Mabel winks, enthusiastically accepting her role as his personal guide for the day. He notices her new hairstyle, amused by how seriously she's taking her role as his guide. She points out his room is on the 3rd floor of the West Building, while the maids reside on the 1st floor. As they walk, he happily interacts with the other castle staff, from the maids to the head chef. The two of them share a smile, both clearly enjoying the tour of the castle grounds. She leads him to a grand entrance flanked by 2 imposing armored guards. Mabel explains this main courtyard serves as a hub to access the rest of the castle, which he readily acknowledges. His attention is suddenly drawn to an object standing in the courtyard. He curiously asks Mabel about the identity of a large statue depicting a female warrior in ornate armor. Mabel identifies the statue as a monument to the first-generation Demon King. Thor is surprised to learn the original ruler was female, and immediately asks about the sword she wields. She explains the legendary blade was forged from a fallen star and used in the Great War against the heroes. The alchemist leans in, whispering to a startled Mabel that the sword on the statue is merely a replica. Mabel is impressed by his sharp eye, realizing he saw through the facade instantly. He confidently explains his overall alchemy skill allows him to sense the complete lack of mana from the object. She sadly reveals the real sword was shattered during the war, and its current whereabouts are a mystery. They both express their disappointment, with Mabel wishing he could have seen the real demon treasure. Their somber mood is broken as they both look up, struck by a sudden mutual realization. A confident smile spreads across Thor's face as he declares he would have gladly repaired the legendary sword if it were here. A flustered Mabel admits that while it's a legendary sword, she believes Thor might actually be capable of fixing it. Thor laments that he can't do anything since the sword is missing, and Mabel agrees it would make the king happy if it were found. He then decides it would be better to create a new weapon that surpasses the legendary original, as Mabel imagines wielding it. He enthusiastically declares that the Demon King deserves a custom-made sword, tailored specifically for her. As Mabel eagerly asks about his plans, he brainstorms unique features like an extendable blade or one that shoots dark mana. Overjoyed, Mabel grabs his hands, promising to help in any way and assuring him the king would be thrilled. Her sudden enthusiasm catches him off guard, drawing the attention of 2 nearby armored guards. The guards whisper to each other, touched by how happy Mabel looks while clinging to the alchemist. One of the guards formally addresses Thor, confirming his identity as the esteemed guest from the Empire. A flustered Mabel quickly pulls him away to continue the tour, both of them embarrassed by the interruption. A towering armored figure suddenly confronts Thor, bluntly sizing him up as weak. Thor is taken aback by the man's immense size and fiery red hair, a sudden realization dawning on him. His fears are confirmed as he recognizes the imposing warrior as the legendary flame general, Reizenga. Reizenga proudly confirms his identity, stating he came personally to inspect the visitor from the Empire. The general smirks with satisfaction, pleased that his formidable reputation is known even to the guest. Maintaining his composure, Thor politely introduces himself and thanks the general for the welcome. Reizenga then gestures behind him, announcing his intention to introduce his daughter, Agnes. The general turns away with a sigh, expressing his disappointment in coming, seemingly to his daughter's chagrin. Thor's confusion grows as another fully armored figure emerges from behind the massive general. The armored warrior, Agnes, greets Thor while Reizenga complains that he expected a mighty warrior, not a fragile-looking man. Thor laughs awkwardly, admitting he's not really suited for fighting. A mortified Mabel tries to de-escalate, pointing out he'd be useless in combat anyway. The general laments his shattered hopes, dramatically calling Thor a heartbreaking letdown. His daughter Agnes protests, insisting her father's insults are going too far. Thor watches the family drama unfold, completely caught off guard. Agnes gets so flustered that steam starts to pour from her helmet. Reizenga calmly places a hand on her shoulder, warning her to control her leaking flames. The general turns his attention back to the alchemist, addressing him by his full name. He demands to know the name of a strong warrior from the Empire, eager for a real fight. Mabel steps forward protectively, reminding the general that Thor is an honored guest of the Demon King. Mabel desperately calls out the general's name, trying to de-escalate the situation. Reizenga strokes his chin, mockingly praising the king's noble idea to learn about the human world. A furious Mabel retorts that this is not the place for him to be gathering intel about the Empire. The general's face darkens, sneering that there are limits to treating a non-combatant as an honored guest. He clenches his fist, declaring that the battlefield is the only true way to learn about the Empire's strength. Ryzenga suddenly grabs Thor by the shoulder, demanding to know what a man like him can possibly do. His eyes glow with fiery energy as he questions how a non-fighter could ever be of service to the Demon King. Thor calmly tells a terrified Mabel to stand down, even as she chokes on the general's immense pressure. He internally assesses the general's overwhelming power, realizing he could be crushed with a single blow. Thor weighs his options, knowing his life depends on his answer, but remembering his oath to the Demon King. Thor confidently declares he is an alchemist and offers to use his skills to tune the general's daughter's armor. He correctly identifies that her armor possesses an earth elemental attribute, surprising Agnes. The general scoffs, questioning how a supposed weakling could possibly understand the armor's properties. Thor explains that a water attribute is a poor counter to fire, as it either turns to steam or is simply extinguished. He elaborates that an earth attribute provides far superior heat resistance, making it ideal for an Ifrit's constitution. His accurate analysis leaves the general speechless, while his daughter nods in vigorous agreement. With a knowing smirk, Thor reveals her gear is a rare item possessing a double earth attribute. A stunned Mabel realizes he can instantly perceive an item's abilities, just as he did with the legendary sword. He then points out the armor's current flaws, noting its inability to contain her flames and offering to strengthen it. The Flame General furiously rejects his help, telling the human alchemist to stay out of their business. A stunned Mabel and a silent Agnes are left speechless by the general's harsh rejection. Ryzenga turns to leave, refusing to let a weakling touch his daughter's armor and ordering her to follow. A mortified Agnes bows deeply to Thor, apologizing for her father's rude behavior before rushing off. Thor watches them depart, a thoughtful expression on his face as Mabel and the guards look on. The two armored guards immediately crowd around Thor, praising his incredible bravery for not flinching before the general. A wide-eyed Mabel chimes in, her voice filled with awe as she declares him amazing. She explains that Ryzenga is one of the most powerful warriors in the castle, questioning how he found the courage to stand up to him. Thor calmly clarifies that his only intention was to demonstrate his skills as an alchemist. He humbly insists it wasn't courage, but his professional curiosity about the armor that drove him to speak up. Thor internally admits his curiosity about the general and his daughter, but decides it's a topic best left alone for now. Thor eagerly asks to continue the tour, and a cheerful Mabel readily agrees. He internally decides to ask Mabel about the Flame General and his daughter later, certain she'll have answers. The narrator foreshadows that Thor's peaceful day is about to be shattered by the general's impending rage. At the end of the day, Mabel officially concludes the castle tour, and Thor expresses his sincere gratitude. With a playful smile, she asks if he plans to make frequent use of the bathhouse he created. He confirms his love for baths, promising to be a regular visitor to the new facility. Mabel's expression turns serious as she gives him one important warning about using the baths. She advises him to always check the in-use tag, which he does upon arriving at the bathhouse door. Finding the entrance clear, he steps into the spacious and seemingly empty resting area. Just as he prepares to relax, his eyes fall upon a familiar suit of armor, instantly recognizing it as Agnes's. He hears the distinct sound of a salamander stoking the bath's flames. The loud noise startles him, and he recalls Mabel's warning about the salamander's tea kettle. He connects the salamanders to the Ifrit clan, deducing that Agnes must be inside. Deciding to be polite, he prepares to announce his presence. He walks towards the entrance, feeling it's only right to greet her before using the facility himself. Peeking inside, he's met with the sight of long, fiery hair amidst swirling flames. He discovers Agnes, who is playfully scolding a small creature for its antics. The little salamander continues its game, tugging insistently on her long hair. Her head whips around, suddenly alerted by the sound of his approach. She turns, telling her little companions they can play after the bath is hot. She casually stokes the furnace, her hand unfazed by the intense heat. The flames around her erupt as she playfully calls out to her small companions. A flustered Agnes apologizes for her poor control over the flames, cradling a small salamander. A stunned Thor realizes he's seeing the Flame General's daughter without her imposing armor for the very first time. His eyes widen as he realizes she's not just unarmored, but completely surrounded by a cloak of fire. The alchemist quickly deduces that for an Ifrit descendant, any clothing would be instantly incinerated by their natural heat. Their eyes meet and Agnes freezes, recognizing the alchemist standing in the doorway. One of her salamander companions lets out a low protective growl at the intruder. Realizing the awkwardness of the situation, Thor decides the wisest course of action is to retreat in silence. But before he can leave, the little salamander chirps, drawing a confused look from Agnes. The small salamander leaps forward, launching itself aggressively towards the intruder. It unleashes a torrent of fire, catching a startled Agnes and a surprised Thor completely off guard. Thinking fast, Thor activates his portable storage room, aiming to absorb the incoming blaze. The flames are successfully drawn into the small box, much to Thor's relief and Agnes's utter shock. His alchemical device effortlessly contains the fiery assault, leaving only a wisp of smoke behind. A horrified Agnes panics, believing she has just attacked the Demon King's honored guest. She frantically worries about the consequences, wanting to call for healers as Thor reassures her from the doorway. He calmly explains that he came prepared for such a possibility, holding up the box as proof. The scene briefly shifts to the silent castle, standing tall against the evening sky. Thor then politely asks the flustered Agnes if she could cover herself before they continue talking. A flustered Thor insists on addressing one thing before they continue their conversation. Now properly covered, she shyly introduces herself as Agnes Freyzad. Later, as Thor tries to discuss the incident, she bows deeply in a frantic apology. He calmly reintroduces himself, trying to put her at ease with a gentle smile. Thor sheepishly admits his curiosity about the salamanders led him to peek inside, not expecting to find her there. Back in her armor, Agnes explains she was just helping out, insisting he did nothing wrong. She becomes incredibly flustered, trying to downplay the entire awkward encounter. Thor quickly reassures her, insisting he saw nothing inappropriate at all. Agnes then confesses that she was the one who forgot to place the in-use tag on the door. In his haste to comfort her, Thor blurts out a compliment about her beauty, leaving them both mortified. Trying to break the tension, Thor comments on how incredible people with Ifrit's blood must be. He internally decides to change the subject, realizing their mutual apologies are making things worse for the flustered Agnes. He points out that even her rare armor is struggling to contain her immense power, with the joints loosening from the heat. Agnes explains she was trying to train with her salamander companions to gain better control over her flames. She confesses her lack of control, admitting that her flames erupt whenever she gets nervous or excited. She reveals the salamanders are old friends, and their presence is the only thing that helps her stay calm. With a wisp of fire in her hand, she sadly admits that she doesn't like her own powerful magic. Thor looks on with genuine empathy, realizing how difficult her life must have been. She recalls a time before her powers awakened when she could wear pretty clothes, which now just burn away. With a confident smile, Thor promises the stunned Agnes that he will find a way to solve her problem. A flustered Agnes questions why he would go to such lengths, but he simply vows to do everything in his power to help. She internally grapples with his offer, barely daring to hope he can truly solve her lifelong problem. Thor proudly declares his status as the Demon King's alchemist, confidently promising she will be able to wear clothes again. Her hope turns to worry as she recalls her father's harsh words, warning Thor not to take such a dangerous risk. He cleverly reframes the situation, explaining that helping her is the perfect way to prove his value to her skeptical father. The alchemist turns with purpose, preparing to make his formal request to the armored warrior. Defeated by his sound logic, Agnes sits with clasped hands, reluctantly admitting that he has a point. A bead of sweat forms on Thor's face as he steels himself for the emotional conversation ahead. Overwhelmed with emotion, Agnes struggles to find the words to express her desperation. With tears streaming down her face, she finally breaks down, begging for his help so she can live a normal life. Agnes formally accepts his offer, placing her trust in the alchemist. Thor returns her trust with a warm, reassuring smile, ready to begin his work. He excitedly gives her a small storage box, a temporary solution to contain any sudden flame outbursts. A stunned Agnes hesitates to accept such a rare item, but he simply explains how to use it. He casually dismisses her concerns, explaining he can easily make more and is more interested in her feedback. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Agnes thanks him profusely as the scene transitions. As Thor departs, Agnes watches him leave, lost in thought about the alchemist's kindness. The narrator explains that those with Ifrit's blood typically gain control over their flames as they grow older. It's revealed that others like Agnes have existed, usually mastering their powers by the time they reach 20. Thor walks with grim determination, realizing that until he helps her, Agnes is doomed to a life of isolation. The narrator concludes that Agnes faces another 5 long years of this torment. Thor clenches his jaw, refusing to accept such a cruel fate for her. He vows to find a permanent, fundamental solution, not just a temporary fix. Back in his room, he realizes the hero's catalog is a treasure trove of potential answers. The alchemist is certain an item capable of suppressing flames must exist within its pages. His frantic search is suddenly interrupted by Mabel's voice from the doorway. She points out he left the door wide open, asking why he's in such a rush. He calmly explains his recent encounter with Agnes and his new mission to help her. A stunned Mabel puts the pieces together, her expression a mix of shock and understanding. She earnestly asks him to follow through, pleading for the sake of the kind-hearted girl. Thor correctly guesses that Mabel and Agnes must be good friends. Mabel recalls their childhood, explaining they met often since she has always worked at the castle. She confirms their close friendship with a gentle, knowing smile. Mabel reminisces about playing together, while Thor notes the castle's healers can even remove burn scars. She clutches her chest, recalling a specific incident when she was the Demon King's playmate. Thor realizes Agnes must have been the one who accidentally burned her, a fact Mabel silently confirms. The narrator reveals that after the incident, overwhelming guilt caused Agnes to withdraw from everyone. With the hero's catalog before him, Thor declares he'll begin the alchemy immediately. Tears stream down Mabel's face as she fully grasps the depth of Agnes's long-suffering loneliness. Filled with new resolve, Thor vows to create an item that will finally allow Agnes to control her powers. He imagines his success allowing Mabel and Agnes to finally rekindle their close friendship. He frantically flips through the hero's catalog, his eyes locking onto a potential solution. The page details a health enhancement pendant that promises to circulate energy and restore balance. Mabel is baffled by the item's description, prompting Thor to explain the hero world's unique magic system. He reveals the pendant's power is based on a foreign concept known as feng shui. Thor elaborates that while his world has 6 elements, the hero's world operates on a system of 5. The pendant is designed to cycle through these 5 foreign elements, awakening the user's hidden potential. A shocked Mabel learns their version of mana is called Kai, a completely different form of energy. He deciphers the fragmented information, piecing together the elemental conversion cycle needed for the alchemy. The pendant's design is intricate, but Thor feels confident he can replicate it even with incomplete knowledge. He deduces that even in the hero's world, the art of elemental conversion was a closely guarded secret. He explains to an amazed Mabel that the pendant's power comes from the flawless engravings of divine beasts. This item is designed to regulate the user's mana, awaken their potential, and ultimately change their fate. Mabel is visibly shaken by the sheer power and complexity behind the hero world's alchemy. Confident this is the solution, he declares it's time to begin crafting the item to help Agnes. He activates his over-alchemy skill, conjuring a holographic 3D blueprint of the pendant. He meticulously plans the design, noting the most difficult part will be replicating the intricate beast god engravings. To adapt the design, he decides to model the vermilion bird engraving after the legendary flame Garuda. He then visualizes the white tiger, confident he can replicate it since similar beasts exist in the demon realm. Finally, he focuses on the azure dragon, the next crucial component for the pendant's elemental cycle. He decides to simply trace the designs for the Killen and black tortoise, hoping his accuracy will be enough. With intense focus, he mentally locks in the complete designs for all the divine beasts. He plans to smelt a simple lump of metal into the pendant, embedding it with the elemental conversion function. The alchemist hits a snag, realizing his world lacks the wood and metal elements, but correctly deduces ground is the same as earth. A moment of doubt crosses his face as he questions if he can truly replicate this complex, otherworldly alchemy. But as he studies the catalog, he realizes his over-alchemy skill is adapting, allowing him to manipulate these foreign elements. A system notification suddenly appears, confirming he has learned to manipulate all 5 elements and asks if he wishes to proceed. His hesitation vanishes, replaced by fierce determination as he decides to forge ahead and create the pendant. He begins the process, concentrating with all his might to precisely visualize the final, perfect form of the item. He quickly shows the holographic blueprint to Mabel, asking her to verify that the designs perfectly match the catalog's engravings. Mabel carefully cross-references the catalog, confirming the designs for the dragon, turtle, tiger, and bird engravings. With her confirmation, Thor activates his over-alchemy skill, ready to ensure the mana can be converted between elements. His goal is clear: to forge the health enhancement pendant and give Agnes control over her flames, ending her suffering for good. The intricate pendant materializes, a high-rarity item designed to convert the user's mana into 5 different elemental energies. The finished product, a beautifully crafted medallion, lands softly in his hand. Mabel marvels at the concept, realizing the pendant will circulate mana through the user to fundamentally change their physical constitution. She looks at him with utter awe, completely speechless at his incredible alchemical feat. Exhausted but triumphant, Thor announces the work is complete, hoping it will finally suppress Agnes's uncontrollable flames. A brilliant idea suddenly strikes him, and he excitedly asks Mabel what would happen if they applied the same principle to the entire demon territory. His ambitious question hangs in the air, hinting at a plan that could change the fate of the entire demon realm. He holds the pendant, pondering if its power could transform the entire demon territory. Mabel brings him back to reality, explaining the massive political hurdles such a project would face. His determined gaze reveals he isn't discouraged by the monumental challenge. For now, he focuses on the finished pendant, realizing it could become standard equipment for all demon kin. As night falls over the castle, he can barely contain his excitement for the morning. The next day, an armored Agnes is startled by an unexpected sight in the hallway. She walks alone through the castle corridors, her heavy armor echoing with each step. Her father, the Flame General, suddenly appears, having been searching for her. Agnes quietly explains she just wanted to explore the castle a little longer. Ryzenga sternly reminds her they are leaving soon, prompting a meek apology from his daughter. Ryzenga softens his tone, accepting his daughter's apology for causing him worry. He explains her lack of control is due to the potent Ifrit blood flowing through her veins. With a rare look of sympathy, he admits he isn't blaming her and understands her difficult struggle. The general reveals that channeling flames through emotion is an Ifrit trait, one that he himself does not possess. Agnes listens with a somber expression, quietly accepting her father's words. Having finished his report to the Demon King, Ryzenga prepares to depart from the castle. He reveals their new orders: to return to their territory, begin mining, and conduct joint operations with the Empire. Agnes points out their territory's proximity to the border necessitates a good relationship with the Empire. She looks to her father with concern, understanding the weight of this new political responsibility. The general smirks, confirming that's why he sought out the Imperial guest, only to be disappointed by his appearance. The general laughs, openly mocking the frail Imperial noble he had hoped to cross swords with. Agnes grits her teeth in frustration, finding her father's behavior utterly disappointing. In her full armor, she furiously demands that her father cease his insults at once. She passionately defends the alchemist, insisting he is a good person, which catches Ryzenga off guard. The general asks if she's spoken to Thor, and Agnes confirms she met with him personally. She reveals the storage box, explaining Thor gave her the valuable item out of concern for her uncontrollable flames. Ryzenga's expression darkens as he recalls the alchemist's offer to strengthen her armor. Agnes watches her father intently while he processes this new information in stony silence. The general's anger erupts as he crushes the box in his hand, infuriated by the alchemist's audacity. He coldly points out that a simple trinket doesn't change the fact that she's still trapped in armor. As Agnes tries to defend the alchemist, her father places a hand on her helmet, insisting she understand his motives. He reveals his actions are all for her benefit, explaining the mining project is meant to secure her future. He lays out his grand plan. She will use her powerful flame magic to eliminate the monsters infesting the mines. She looks up at her father, quietly processing the immense weight of his expectations. He envisions her incinerating their enemies, a raw display of power that will surely intimidate the Empire. With a confident smirk, he declares this will force both the demon territory and the Empire to finally acknowledge her strength. With a look of deep resignation, Agnes quietly agrees to her father's demanding plan. Internally, she despairs, wishing for a more peaceful existence and feeling utterly lost. A painful memory surfaces of her accidentally burning a friend, an incident that led to her complete isolation. She remembers the tragic moment her powers first awakened, going berserk and scarring her dearest friend. She recalls how, despite her isolation, the alchemist was one of the few who treated her with kindness. Agnes muses that his fearlessness makes him strange, but feels she can't get close to him and Mabel. Cloaked in her own fire, she accepts her fate, vowing to uphold her father's name no matter what. The general grants her 2 days of freedom before their departure, satisfied with her quiet obedience. Night falls over the castle, casting a lonely silhouette against the mountains. Agnes looks out with a heavy heart, convinced there's not enough time for the alchemist to fulfill his promise. She walks through her room, her body wreathed in the very flames that keep her isolated. Her discarded armor serves as a stark reminder that her time at the castle is running out. Clutching the storage box, she decides his kind words and this gift are more than she could have hoped for. Standing by the window, she resolves to find him the next day and properly express her gratitude. In the throne room, the Demon King observes that Thor's search for a workshop is proving difficult. Her aide confirms Thor's specific needs for a location with easy access to alchemical materials are hard to meet. He elaborates on the logistical nightmare of a human trying to gather resources or open a shop in demon territory. An advisor suggests a remote, resource-rich area is ideal, acknowledging the local prejudice against humans. The advisor agrees it's too risky for Thor to be exposed to large crowds of demons. The conversation then shifts to the recent incident involving the Flame General, Ryzenga. Despite the challenges, the advisor orders the search for a suitable location to continue. The aide realizes that until a location is found, their top priority must be assigning Thor a bodyguard. The Demon King decides against punishing Ryzenga, reasoning it would only make others more wary of her human guest. She confidently reveals she has already ordered the general to back off, knowing he can do little more than grumble in protest. The Demon King concludes it would be better to establish a new, ideal location for him outside the castle walls. Her aide worries that isolating him would prevent others from seeking his help, defeating the purpose of his stay. The aide's compassionate reasoning gives the Demon King pause, making her reconsider her approach. She officially tasks her aide, Kelv, with finding the perfect location for the alchemist's workshop. The next morning, Thor meets with Agnes, who stands silently before him in her full suit of armor. He greets her warmly, placing a hand over his heart as he thanks her for meeting him. A surprised Agnes realizes the renowned alchemist was personally waiting for her arrival. A cheerful Mabel appears, explaining she asked to join them, believing she could be of service as his maid. Agnes turns in surprise, recognizing her friend Mabel standing beside the alchemist. Visibly flustered by this unexpected development, Agnes struggles to hide her awkwardness. Agnes announces she has come to bid him farewell, while Thor realizes she's still haunted by the memory of scarring Mabel. She apologizes for his efforts, convinced he won't be able to finish his promised item in time. Agnes reveals she and her father are leaving for their territory the next day, dashing her hopes for a solution. Thor calmly interrupts her, casually revealing that the item is already finished, leaving Agnes completely stunned. He presents the intricately crafted pendant, and Agnes can only stare in disbelief. With a reassuring smile, Thor confirms he has completed the item that will finally allow her to control her flames. He explains the pendant will convert her flame magic into other elements, weakening her power and granting her new abilities. Mabel joins them with a set of clothes, announcing it's time to test the pendant's effects, much to Agnes's continued shock. With a cheerful smile, Mabel urges Agnes to remove her armor and try on the clothes, but Agnes recoils in fear. Agnes panics, terrified she'll burn the clothes and tragically injure her friend all over again. Thor reassures Agnes he can adjust the pendant if anything goes wrong. Mabel expresses complete faith in Thor's alchemical skills. Thor reaffirms his dedication to helping Agnes. Mabel reflects on Thor's calming presence. Agnes realizes she'll regret not trying. Agnes fears the potential consequences of inaction more than action. Agnes requests to use the pendant. Thor offers the pendant to Agnes. A small dragon-like creature sleeps peacefully. Thor sits patiently as the small creatures rest. A hesitant voice comes from behind the changing screen, her uncertainty palpable. The sound of a door clanking open makes Thor turn his head in anticipation. Agnes emerges from the room, apologizing for the delay, and leaving Thor completely stunned. Now in a dress, she nervously asks for his opinion, and a blushing Thor declares she looks incredibly cute. His blunt compliment sends her into a flustered panic as she vehemently denies it. The health enhancement pendant on her chest glows, converting her excess fire magic into other elements. Mabel watches in awe as the pendant channels Agnes's power into wood, ground, metal, and water. Agnes is stunned by the immediate effects, marveling at her smooth skin as the pendant grants her new attributes. She twirls with joy, amazed at how light and free her body feels without the heavy armor. Her little salamander companion leaps towards her, sharing in her newfound happiness. Thor explains to a shocked Mabel that Agnes's fire magic is now being used to physically enhance her body. Unused to the new balance of power, Agnes stumbles forward as her salamander companion looks on in alarm. The alchemist calmly tells her that while it will take practice, her days of accidentally incinerating clothes are over. In her panic, Agnes blurts out that she isn't wearing any undergarments, adding to the awkwardness. She quickly clamps her dress down, overcome with mortification from the unexpected revelation. The confession leaves Thor blushing furiously, while Mabel maintains her usual deadpan expression. Agnes tries to laugh off her embarrassment, her face a mixture of shame and forced nonchalance. A flustered Thor quickly assures her he saw nothing, trying to de-escalate the mortifying situation. He sheepishly apologizes for an unintended side effect, as the pendant's power boost makes her feel exposed. Brushing it all aside, Thor confidently declares that the health enhancement pendant is working perfectly, and the experiment is a success. A tearfully grateful Mabel thanks Thor, declaring her deepest wish has finally been granted. Overcome with emotion, Mabel suddenly embraces a startled Agnes. Agnes panics, fearing her unstable emotions will cause her flames to erupt, but Mabel calmly reassures her. Mabel apologizes, admitting she was the one who caused Agnes's deep-seated trauma about her powers. She looks at her friend with deep empathy, understanding the fear Agnes must have felt for so long. Agnes breaks down, confessing she was at fault for losing control and burning Mabel when her powers first awakened. Mabel recalls the incident, regretting her own shocked reaction and remembering Agnes's frantic apologies. She believes that if she had been stronger, Agnes might have grown up confident instead of afraid of her own magic. Mabel comforts her friend, insisting the past is over and she no longer has to fear hurting anyone. She pulls Agnes into a tight hug, overjoyed that they can finally be close again without fear. Mabel looks at her friend with a gentle smile, asking if they can finally be close again. Through tears of joy, Agnes confirms that she can finally be with her friend without fear. The years of pent-up sorrow and loneliness pour out in a flood of happy tears. Their emotional moment is interrupted by a system notification, revealing Agnes's newly acquired elemental attributes. As Thor watches contentedly, Mabel playfully pinches a blushing Agnes's cheeks, forcing her to smile. Mabel then turns to the alchemist, declaring it's his turn to receive some gratitude. Her unexpected suggestion leaves a bewildered Thor completely speechless. With a mischievous wink, Mabel suggests that he should also give the newly freed Agnes a celebratory hug. The very idea sends a mortified Agnes into a flustered panic. Mabel insists she should embrace the opportunity, now that she can finally interact with people again. A blushing Agnes worries that Thor wouldn't be interested in such an intimate gesture. Mabel turns the tables with a sly smile, asking if Thor has any objections to hugging Agnes. A flustered Thor calls out Mabel's underhanded question, clearly caught off guard. The two stand awkwardly, their hearts pounding as they prepare for the embrace. Thor suddenly remembers her lack of undergarments, realizing the hug is far more complicated than he thought. Meanwhile, the Flame General storms through the castle halls, searching for his missing daughter. He arrives at the bathhouse, correctly guessing the salamanders would know her whereabouts. Ryzenga bursts in with a triumphant grin, calling out to his daughter, only to be met with a shocking sight. His joy turns to disbelief as he sees his unarmored daughter in the arms of the human alchemist. The general's face darkens with rage as he confronts a nervous Thor, demanding an explanation for the scene before him. The general's rage fills the room as he looms over them, demanding to know what Thor is doing to his daughter. Mabel quickly steps between them, trying to calm the furious general. As she tries to explain, Ryzenga roars at her to get out of his way while Agnes watches in shock. He lunges towards the alchemist, vowing to drag him away and make him pay for his supposed transgression. But before he can reach Thor, Mabel moves in a flash, intercepting the general with a sharp warning. Thor is stunned by her incredible speed, realizing he couldn't even see her move. A flashback reveals Thor had previously asked Mabel about the general's character. She had cheerfully described him as an extremely doting father, a fact Thor now understands all too well. Mabel also revealed his legendary status as a warrior who once defeated 100 soldiers single-handedly. The flashback ends, showing that the arm of that very same legendary warrior is now swinging towards them. The general's furious attack is suddenly halted just inches from its target. To everyone's shock, it's Agnes who has effortlessly caught her father's armored fist. She sternly tells her father to listen, leaving a stunned Thor to witness her newfound strength. Ryzenga roars his daughter's name in disbelief, unable to comprehend her sudden transformation. A system notification reveals the pendant has granted her a massive 250% boost to all her physical attributes. The legendary warrior struggles in vain, completely unable to break free from his daughter's grip. He stares in awe, demanding to know what has happened to the girl he once knew. Now free, the general looks on as his daughter's appearance changes, her hair turning a fiery red as she radiates power. The pendant's true power is revealed, converting her excess flame magic into raw physical strength across multiple elements. Mabel steps forward to explain, declaring that the alchemist poured his heart and soul into saving Agnes. Ryzenga stares in utter disbelief, struggling to process Mabel's words. Mabel explains that thanks to the alchemist, Agnes can finally wear normal clothes. The general's eyes widen in shock as he finally realizes his daughter is completely out of her armor. His shock quickly turns to suspicion as he accuses Thor of deceiving his daughter. The alchemist steps forward, explaining he simply listened to Agnes's plight and created a solution. Ryzenga refuses to believe him, furiously accusing Thor of a perverse plot to humiliate his daughter. To intimidate the alchemist, the general unleashes his own powerful flames, but Thor calmly prepares his storage box. The legendary warrior's blaze is effortlessly absorbed, leaving him stunned and questioning what kind of being Thor is. Thor stands his ground, calmly revealing his official title as the alchemist who serves the Demon King. Seeing the general is still unconvinced, Thor calmly asks him to at least listen to the full story. Thor calmly explains his only goal is to solve the problems of the Demon Realm's people so they can live comfortably. Mabel desperately tries to reason with the enraged general, who only growls in response. The furious general declares he's done talking and intends to drag the alchemist away by force. As he lunges for Thor, Agnes once again steps in, blocking her father's path. She grabs his wrist, her grip so strong it stops the legendary warrior cold. Ryzenga struggles against her hold, threatening to unleash his full power if she doesn't submit. Agnes stands her ground, boldly telling her father to leave them be. The sheer force of their standoff causes the very ground beneath them to crack and shatter. Pushed to his limit, the general's power erupts, his hair igniting with furious flames. The overwhelming display of raw power leaves both Thor and Mabel completely shocked. The general roars in disbelief, completely overwhelmed by his daughter's sudden power surge. He demands to know the source of her incredible strength, unable to break free from her grasp. Ryzenga realizes her power is erupting because her anger has triggered her latent abilities. Agnes glares with fiery determination, channeling her overflowing magic through the pendant. Mabel explains that the alchemist's work is the reason for Agnes's incredible growth. The alchemist watches as the narration reveals she has focused all her energy into the pendant he created. She is now drawing on a life force many times greater than her normal state. Mabel realizes with awe that Agnes's newfound strength is enough to completely halt the legendary general's attack. The mighty warrior can only stammer, utterly broken by the reality of his daughter's power. Agnes tearfully declares that with the power Thor gave her, she can finally protect those she loves. She passionately declares that Thor taught her how to use her flame to help people, not just destroy. A system notification reveals that as a fire-type user, she has gained a staggering 400% vitality boost. Effortlessly holding her legendary father aloft, she demands that he apologize to the alchemist. The completely overpowered general frantically agrees, promising to apologize if she'll just put him down. Mabel watches in disbelief, realizing the heroic fables she'd heard might not be so far-fetched after all. Thor calmly compares the incredible sight to ancient legends of heroes lifting dragons. The general's desperate cries echo from the castle as his daughter carries him off to have a serious talk. Later, a defeated Ryzenga sits on the floor as Mabel explains how Thor created the item just for Agnes. The mighty warrior can only sweat and stammer, his mind struggling to accept the unbelievable truth. Agnes then presents the glowing pendant, revealing the source of her newfound control and strength. Agnes proudly displays the vitality pendant, explaining how it converts her fire magic into other elements. The legendary general can only stare in utter disbelief, struggling to process the impossible explanation. Thor adds that because of the pendant, Agnes can finally wear the same kind of clothes as her friend Mabel. As Ryzenga stammers in disbelief, the alchemist confidently confirms his daughter's newfound freedom. Agnes passionately confronts her father, reminding him that he attacked the very person who fulfilled her lifelong dream. The full weight of his actions crashes down on the general, who can only stammer in horrified realization. Overcome with shame, Rizenga performs a powerful, ground-shaking bow of apology to the stunned alchemist. The mighty warrior begs for forgiveness, utterly ashamed of how he treated someone who was only trying to help his daughter. With tears of gratitude, he acknowledges Thor's kindness, moved that someone else cared so deeply for Agnes. Thor is taken aback, realizing the legendary warrior's tears are born from overwhelming love for his daughter. Thor watches the emotional display, internally remarking on the general's intense brand of fatherhood. The general tearfully acknowledges that the alchemist risked his own safety, all for Agnes's sake. He clenches his fist in shame, admitting his lofty title blinded him to people's true character. As Thor tries to calm the situation, Agnes looks on with deep concern for her father's emotional state. Overwhelmed with regret, the warrior dramatically vows to destroy his own eyes, horrifying his daughter. The alchemist leaps forward, grabbing the general's arm and insisting such a drastic measure is going too far. Thor explains he'll be living in the demon territory now and would rather not have to worry about the general's well-being. He then reveals a key detail. Agnes's condition improves when her flames are active, which is why her new clothes feel strange. Mabel comforts the distraught warrior, contrasting his fierce love with her own father's villainous past. The general humbly agrees to follow Thor's advice, while the alchemist feels a surprising pang of jealousy over their bond. The humbled general insists on paying for the pendant, asking the alchemist to name any price. He then begs Thor to let him be a part of his and Agnes's future endeavors, unable to bear being left out. Thor thoughtfully considers the general's desperate offer to pay for his services. The scene transitions to the Demon King's castle, where a new plan is being set in motion. In the throne room, the Flame General kneels before the Demon King and her court. The Demon King reflects on her own past, recalling how she was once underestimated for not being physically strong. An advisor notes the rarity of the general, requesting a formal audience with the Demon King. Rizenga passionately declares his intention to secure the alchemist's loyalty for the demon realm. He formally swears an oath of fealty to the Demon King, putting his very life on the line. With fiery resolve, the general seals his vow in the name of the very origin of flame itself. The aide is stunned by the general's ancient and powerful oath. He explains this vow is absolute, a pledge not made since the time of the first Demon King. The Demon King calmly asks if the general truly comprehends the gravity of his declaration. She questions his sudden and dramatic display of loyalty. The general confesses he acted foolishly, disrespecting an individual under Her Majesty's protection. He reveals the alchemist succeeded where all others failed, finally curing his daughter's condition. A shocked Demon King demands to know what transpired between the general and the alchemist. Her aide is equally astonished, wondering how Thor contained the flames that once required full armor. The general tearfully recounts his grave misunderstanding, admitting he tried to threaten the alchemist by force. He confirms that Agnes, empowered by Thor's creation, not only stopped him but gained incredible physical strength. The Demon King and her aide are left speechless by the general's shocking revelation. He recounts how Agnes effortlessly stopped his attack with one hand before lifting him into the air. The Demon King realizes Thor has not only secured the general's loyalty, but also solved Agnes's long-standing affliction. A sly smile crosses her face as she muses on how truly intriguing and unpredictable the alchemist is. The general explains that this profound gratitude is what drove him to pledge his undying allegiance. He confesses his initial doubts about her policy of learning from humans, admitting Thor has proven him wrong. With unwavering conviction, he declares his loyalty to her is now absolute. He then prostrates himself dramatically, begging for punishment for his grave misjudgment. The aide struggles to comprehend the situation, realizing they're witnessing an ancient form of fire magic made manifest. Overwhelmed by the impossible events, the aide resorts to banging his head against the wall in sheer disbelief. The advisor confirms the general's grave error in judgment. The Demon King reflects on the situation, acknowledging Rizenga's ignorance but feeling this incident is different. Her expression hardens as she decides that, as their ruler, she must punish the general for his unforgivable actions. She turns to the kneeling warrior, asking what punishment the alchemist demanded for the offense. Rizenga humbly admits that the alchemist didn't ask for any form of retribution. The advisor presses further, asking how the general responded to Thor's surprising lack of demands. The general recounts how he insisted that the alchemist punish him, no matter the cost. A flashback reveals Thor's clever punishment, access to the rare ores and materials in the general's territory. Thor also requested permission to meet the local people, hoping to build trust within the demon realm. The Demon King listens intently, a silhouette of power as she fully grasps the alchemist's brilliant strategy. The Demon King smirks, realizing Thor's request was a calculated move to protect Agnes's position. She understands the general fears tarnishing his daughter's reputation far more than any personal punishment. Knowing this, she decides on a punishment that cleverly sidesteps Thor's reluctance to inflict one himself. She declares that for threatening her guest, she will confiscate a portion of the general's territory. Her advisor specifies the land to be seized is the resource-rich area surrounding the mines. A horrified Rizenga understands the full weight of this command. The advisor then orders him to use that land to build a grand house and workshop for the alchemist. Kelv is stunned by the decree, questioning the use of such valuable resources. But the general, with renewed fervor, shouts that he gladly accepts this punishment. The advisor lets out a satisfied laugh, clearly amused by the turn of events. The Demon King finds it amusing that the alchemist's workshop will be in the Flame General's territory, the most unlikely place of all. Her advisor lists the benefits, a secure, resource-rich location where the general himself will now be Thor's protector. While her aide still struggles to grasp the concept of magic conversion, the Demon King demands his opinion on the new arrangement. Kelv wisely points out that her punishment avoids showing weakness to the Empire during their sensitive negotiations with the general. The Demon King's expression hardens, fully aware of the delicate political balance with the Empire. Meanwhile, in the general's territory, the first step of the new plan begins, clearing demon beasts from the mountains. This operation is part of a joint effort, with Rizenga personally negotiating with a marquise from the Empire. The plan is fraught with risk, as gathering troops so close to the border could easily be seen as a prelude to invasion. As their forces prepare to fight alongside each other, the Demon King questions the wisdom of trusting the nation that exiled Thor. With the new directive in place, Agnes and a humbled Rizenga depart the capital and head back to their territory. Thor learns the general's offer to build his workshop is an apology, and an embarrassed Agnes is excited for his future visit. Having said his goodbyes, Thor returns to his room, his focus now shifting back to his alchemical research. Mabel presents Thor with a gift from Agnes, a mysterious, heat-resistant stone she once used as a talisman. As Mabel hands him the stone, Thor realizes it could be an incredibly rare iron meteorite, perfect for his work. Realizing this heat-resistant material from the mine will be invaluable, he prepares to use his evaluation skill. His mind immediately jumps to the possibilities, envisioning powerful new weapons for fighting monsters. The scene shifts to the rugged mining area in the Demon King's territory. Deep within the mines, monstrous spiders lurk in the darkness, their eyes glowing menacingly. A creature is viciously attacked, its body pierced by the sharp fangs of a monstrous arachnid. The swarm shows no mercy, quickly overwhelming another beast caught in their dark domain. Silken cocoons hang ominously from the ceiling, hinting at the fate of previous intruders. A group of armed men make their way through the territory, their purpose unknown. These are not soldiers, but a rough-looking band of mercenaries likely drawn by greed. One of the men voices his concern about the legendary Flame General and the dangerous beasts rumored to be nearby. Their leader dismisses the warning, hyping his crew up with promises of untold treasures hidden in the demon lands. He scoffs at the idea of any threat, whether it be from the general or the local fauna. With a confident grin, he raises his axe, vowing to cut down anyone who stands in their way. His men roar in approval, their greed overriding their fear as they prepare to plunder the mines. The boss's triumphant swing is cut short as a monstrous spider intercepts his attack, shocking him. His confidence shatters as a swarm of arachnids suddenly engulfs him, his screams lost in the darkness. The mercenary boss is overwhelmed by the swarm, his silhouette torn apart in the chaos. His men can only watch in terror as a monstrous spider looms over the remains of their fallen. Panic erupts as the survivors turn and flee for their lives, their greed replaced by pure fear. Their escape is cut short as they come face to face with an even more terrifying, colossal creature. The queen of the swarm, a beast of immense size, crashes through the forest, its power absolute. With a single devastating strike, the queen crushes the remaining mercenaries under her immense weight. The last remnants of the failed expedition are swiftly dealt with by the skittering swarm. Back at the castle, Thor contemplates the mysterious stone Agnes gave him, a wisp of energy rising from it. He realizes the stone is no ordinary rock, but a rare meteorite containing a powerful spatial element. Thor smiles, grateful to the Demon King for the opportunity to discover new elements and expand his alchemical horizons. Thor recalls the Demon King had something to show him, and heads to the next workshop with time to spare. He enters a room cluttered with forgotten artifacts and discarded equipment, a treasure trove for an alchemist. While the Demon King watches in confusion, Thor excitedly inspects the various items he finds. The alchemist is overjoyed, realizing the room is filled with priceless materials and forgotten treasures. His eyes land on a magnificent magical sword, one he recognizes from the statue of the first Demon King. The Demon King appears at the door, calling for Thor to come and see what she has for him. She watches him with a discerning gaze, her expression unreadable as she waits for his reaction. The Demon King models a new dress asking for his opinion, and Thor agrees that it suits her perfectly. She insists he call her Lucia, reminding him they are friends who share a secret, not just a ruler and her subject. Lucia playfully suggests that since she's already seen as a tyrant by the Empire, she has every right to be selfish with him. Lucia playfully orders him to use her first name, testing the bounds of their new friendship. Thor obediently agrees to her command, much to her satisfaction. He then suggests keeping their close relationship a secret for now, which visibly disappoints her. A blushing Lucia admits she can't stand the suspense, especially if he approves of her new look. Overcome with emotion, a flustered Thor blurts out that she looks incredibly cute. Quickly changing the subject, Lucia asks what he's been doing, explaining she found something while cleaning. He presents an unfamiliar sword, asking if she recognizes it, but she cleverly turns the question back on him. The alchemist theorizes it's a failed prototype, an attempt to recreate the legendary sword of the first Demon King. He demonstrates how the blade is completely blunt, proving it's nothing more than a failed product. Lucia smiles, clearly impressed by his immediate and accurate assessment. Lucia reveals the sword was a failed attempt by an elf and a dwarf to recreate a legendary weapon. When Thor asks to keep it, she reminds him that this entire workshop now belongs to him. She formally presents the failed prototype to him, making it his official property. The alchemist boldly declares his intention to succeed where others failed and forge a true magic sword. He confesses his dream is to create a weapon that surpasses the Empire's holy swords, despite his own lack of combat ability. Thor suggests this new sword could be used in the upcoming beast subjugation mission. He clarifies his goal, to forge this powerful weapon for the Demon King herself to wield. A pleased Lucia thanks him for the thought, but gently rejects the offer, surprising the alchemist. She explains she prefers support items that allow for ranged attacks, not another close-quarters weapon. The alchemist understands instantly, his mind racing with the challenge of creating long-range support items. Fired up by the new challenge, the alchemist confidently declares he'll see what he can create. An amused Lucia watches him dash off, ready to dive headfirst into his research. The narration provides a quick primer on demon beasts, the mindless monsters he's now tasked with fighting. Thor immediately buries himself in his books, frantically searching for a solution. He admits his disappointment about the sword, but refocuses on creating items to defeat these new threats. A curious Mabel appears, asking what incredible item he plans to forge next. The alchemist presents a page from his book, showing her his latest inspiration. With a determined grin, Thor announces he's decided on his next project. Mabel squints at the diagram, unable to read the text but describing a strange cylindrical object. Thor reveals his plan to build a special beast-slaying tool and asks for Mabel's assistance, which she happily provides. The alchemist theorizes he can focus light by surrounding it with darkness, preparing to activate his super alchemy. He decides to add wind elements to the formula, intending for them to carry the light's energy even further. His concept takes shape as a powerful, concentrated beam of light piercing through the darkness. Thor struggles to maintain focus, knowing the slightest lapse in concentration will ruin the delicate process. With a burst of power, he successfully forges the large, cylindrical item from his design. A system notification identifies his creation as a laser pointer, detailing its magical properties and restrictions. Thor triumphantly presents his newest invention, a tool he believes is a modern marvel from his world. A bewildered Mabel stares at the device, completely unfamiliar with the concept of a laser pointer. To explain, Thor hands her a translated catalog page, hoping it will clarify the item's purpose. The page reveals a bizarre advertisement from Thor's world, marketing the laser pointer for business presentations and scaring away small animals. The alchemist insists the laser pointer is a great item, even if Mabel doesn't understand its intended purpose. Mabel remains unconvinced, pointing out another confusing part of the description. She reads a line about its use for teachers, questioning how that applies to their situation. Thor cleverly reinterprets the marketing jargon, explaining it's for a commander to designate targets for their troops. Mabel reads another cryptic phrase about transmitting instructions and calming the surroundings. The alchemist passionately declares this means the enemy will be swiftly defeated and silenced. He points to the warning against using it on humans, concluding it must be designed specifically for demon beasts. With a flash of insight, Mabel realizes presentation must be their term for a beast-slaying competition. She now pictures heroes from another world competing to see who can vanquish the most monsters. Thor smiles, impressed by her quick grasp of his creative interpretation, while a blushing Mabel gives him the credit. Mabel considers the potential of Thor's new invention. Thor explains the laser pointer's limited use against demon beasts. A small bird-like creature reacts with fear. The laser pointer's power is demonstrated, hinting at its potential impact. The laser pointer is deemed a terrifying object in this world of heroes. Thor and Mabel prepare to test the laser pointer's effectiveness. They decide to test the laser pointer on some demon beasts. Thor and Mabel encounter a group arguing about battle strategy. An elf complains about the dangers they face. The group discusses the overwhelming number of demon beast followers. A warrior explains their predicament, unable to attack the giant arachnid Gargarosa without proper support. The beast is shown to be a massive spider that commands a seemingly endless swarm of smaller arachnids. A diagram illustrates their flawed strategy, with a vanguard attacking directly while the support stays back. Thor and Mabel observe from a distance, understanding the source of the adventurers' heated debate. A second diagram reveals the fatal flaw. The swarm ignores the vanguard and overwhelms the isolated support. Mabel stands at a training ground, noting the target is set at a distance that makes hitting it with a normal spell nearly impossible. She prepares for the test, her objective being to strike the very center of the distant bullseye. With a look of determination, Thor aims the laser pointer, eager to see if it can extend her spell's effective range. He instructs her to focus her magic on the red dot now visible on the target, and she readies her spell. Mabel unleashes an icicle arrow which flies with incredible precision and shatters the center of the target. A baffled Mabel questions her own success, while an eager Thor suggests they push the limits even further. The alchemist congratulates a stunned Mabel on her incredible accuracy with the new device. A system notification confirms she successfully hit the target from 1.5 times the normal maximum range. Not satisfied, they double the distance for an even more challenging test. Once again, her spell strikes true, landing a perfect hit on the distant bullseye. Nearby, the bickering adventurers continue their debate, with the warrior lecturing the elf on the importance of proper spell range. He argues that while mages should be in the back, they can't be too far, or their spells will be useless. The elf then spots Thor and Mabel, dismissing their position as impossibly far for any effective magic. His companion also notices them, casually remarking on their spell practice. Suddenly, the elf spots a flash of light followed by a powerful projectile streaking towards the target, leaving her speechless. The elf watches in utter disbelief as the projectile shatters the distant target with impossible precision. Thor confirms they've extended the spell's range by 3.5 times, having run out of room on the training ground. Declaring the experiment a success, he turns to a bewildered Mabel who can't comprehend her own accuracy. She realizes with a shock that every single one of her spells has landed in the exact same spot. The alchemist theorizes that her magic was drawn to the residual energy left by the laser pointer. His eyes widen as he pieces together the true function of his accidental invention. He explains that the pointer doesn't just mark a target, it creates a direct magical link to it. A stunned Mabel listens as he reveals that when used, the pointer effectively bonds with her spell. The device then guides the spell along the established magical path, ensuring a perfect hit every time. The watching warrior shudders, wondering what kind of terrifying world would necessitate such a powerful weapon. The elf stares in disbelief, commenting on the enormous power she just witnessed. Her companion agrees, attributing the incredible feat to an item from a legendary world of heroes. Mabel nervously points out the destroyed targets, suggesting they should clean up before leaving. Thor agrees, deciding their next step is to show the powerful new item to the Demon King. He then turns to the stunned adventurers, cheerfully thanking them for the use of their training ground. The two adventurers are completely flustered, sweating profusely in the face of such overwhelming power. They frantically wave their hands, eagerly agreeing to whatever the alchemist says. Mabel looks on in surprise, questioning if the adventurers are really offering to clean up the mess themselves. Thor graciously accepts their offer, thanking them for the inconvenience as he and Mabel turn to leave. Walking away, the alchemist can't help but wonder what those adventurers must think of their bizarre training session. The two adventurers are left utterly dumbfounded, unable to process the power they just witnessed. Their previous argument about spell range seems completely pointless now that they've seen the impossible become reality. Thor casually mentions he can build these game-changing items, leaving the adventurers to ponder the implications. The revelation that he can craft such wonders in mere minutes sends a shiver down their spines. Their report catches the ear of a high-ranking official, Counselor Kurov, who identifies them as commanders. Kurov stops them, demanding to know what has them so flustered, and learns the alchemist is under the Demon King's protection. A sinister smile spreads across Kurov's face as he insists on hearing every detail about the alchemist's weird item. After hearing their tale, the counselor's curiosity turns to fury, demanding an immediate explanation from Thor himself. The news of the alchemist's strange and powerful creations quickly travels up the chain of command to Counselor Kurov. The scene shifts, hinting that while this drama unfolds, other events are already in motion. The scene shifts to the sprawling capital of the human empire, where new schemes are brewing. A corrupt official raises his glass, declaring the time for negotiations with the demon realm has finally arrived. His co-conspirator agrees, sneering at the demon's supposed foolishness and planning to turn the Duke's family into puppets. The official's reflection distorts in his wine as he confirms his primary target is the flame general, Ryzenga. With a sinister glint in his eye, he lays out the steps to bring the legendary warrior to the Empire's side. Their plan begins by offering Ryzenga silver and soldiers to help him eliminate monsters in his territory. In return for this aid, they will extract crucial intelligence about the demon realm's border defenses. The ultimate objective is to drive a wedge between the general and the Demon King, shattering their alliance. They will achieve this by spreading a false rumor that Ryzenga is embezzling silver, creating internal conflict. This fabricated scandal is designed to push the general into an open rebellion against his own ruler. The official smirks, convinced his treacherous plan is a work of genius. His plot hinges on exploiting the past humiliation of a noble family, the Dukes. He plans to use this family's desperation for restored honor as a key part of his scheme. The narration reveals this family's legend is not one of a saint, but of a cunning eagle. The official's plan begins with the Duke, whose family legend is about to be reborn. The Duke is paraded through the streets, presented as a hero on a glorious path, cheered on by the masses. He basks in the adoration of the crowd, hearing their thunderous applause and praise. This public adoration brings him immense comfort, a feeling he has long craved. Back in the shadows, the mastermind reveals he's added another layer to his already intricate plot. The Duke sits alone, letting out a sinister chuckle, fully embracing his role in the conspiracy. The corrupt official toasts the demons whose downfall he believes will be his greatest triumph. The scene shifts to a grand castle, the stage for the delicate negotiations between the two powers. Ryzenga informs Agnes he's meeting the Empire's envoy, asking her to remain vigilant. Agnes turns the tables, nervously advising her father to listen carefully and avoid jumping to conclusions. She continues her lecture, reminding the flustered general to show the Empire's representatives proper respect. Her intense gaze pleads with him, a silent demand for him to behave himself this time. The Empire's Marquis notes the importance of the meeting, while Ryzenga is struck by how much Agnes's stare resembles his late wife's. Agnes stresses the importance of the beast's subjugation talks, warning her father not to jeopardize their relations. The general recalls his powerful oath to the Demon King, his resolve hardening. The narration reveals his Oath of the Flame Giant is a complex vow with a dual meaning. The oath's second meaning is a pledge of eternal love, offering his very soul to the person he cares for. Its first meaning is a vow to his liege, where breaking it means sacrificing his own life. Agnes simply smiles, attributing her concern to their family bond. The general reflects that despite the different meanings of their vows, they are both making a solemn pledge today. Ryzenga clenches his fist, a shiver of regret running through him as he remembers threatening the alchemist. With his mind set on the present, he prepares for the task at hand. He walks down the grand corridor, resolving to be a man who won't bring shame upon himself in their eyes. A maid announces the envoy's arrival, standing before the doors to the meeting room. The Empire's envoy, Marquis Gora, introduces himself as the Frontier Lord, extending a formal greeting. Ryzenga formally introduces himself, stating the Demon King has entrusted him with the border territory. The Marquis showers the general with praise for his legendary exploits, but Ryzenga humbly brushes them off. The envoy continues his flattery, recalling tales of the general single-handedly crushing beasts in his youth. Internally, the Marquis is taken aback, finding the general's modest demeanor completely at odds with his fearsome reputation. Ryzenga cuts through the pleasantries, eager to begin the formal negotiations for the beast subjugation. He outlines the threat, a monstrous arachnid leading a seemingly endless swarm of smaller creatures. The Marquis confirms the Empire will send up to 200 soldiers to assist in taking down the beast known as Gargarosa. Having established the terms of their cooperation, the envoy smoothly brings up the matter of the Empire's compensation. He greedily pushes for an extended payment plan, suggesting the Demon Realm pay them in silver for up to 4 years. Ryzenga shuts down the request, stating he's already agreed to a 1-year term with the Demon King. The envoy pivots, proposing a new arrangement. The Empire will send its gratitude directly to the general, bypassing the Demon King entirely. Ryzenga furiously accuses the envoy of suggesting he deceive his own Demon King. The Marquis calmly reframes his offer, hinting at calculation errors in the general's mining reports. The general glares with suspicion as the envoy maintains his sly, confident smile. He then suggests that any surplus from these errors could be sent to the Empire to forge a strong alliance. The envoy acknowledges the general's distrust, admitting that caution is wise in such backroom dealings. To build trust, the Marquis brings up a mutual acquaintance, asking if the general knows the alchemist Thor. A new idea sparks in Ryzenga's mind, his expression turning sharp and calculating. The Marquis then reveals the core of his plan. If their deal is exposed, they can simply use Thor as a scapegoat. The general is left utterly speechless, horrified by the envoy's treacherous suggestion. With a wicked grin, the Marquis lays out the frame-up. They'll claim Thor embezzled the silver and falsified documents. The envoy triumphantly declares that Thor will be forced to serve both the Empire and the general for the rest of his life. He dismisses the alchemist as useless trash, whose sacrifice will guarantee the general's safety and build their new alliance. In response, the general's fist tightens, completely shattering the stone armrest of his throne. The sudden display of power startles the envoy as steam rises from the general's clenched fist. Ryzenga's voice is low and dangerous as he asks if this treacherous plan to frame the alchemist is the envoy's alone. The Marquis smirks, casually dismissing the need to inform the Emperor of such minor details. He then tries to shift responsibility, claiming it's also his father's plan, but Ryzenga cuts him off, demanding to know if the Emperor approved this. A chilling understanding dawns on the general, who calmly confirms this conspiracy doesn't have the Emperor's blessing. He rises to his full, intimidating height, declaring that this allows him to focus his contempt on them, not the entire Empire. The envoy's confidence evaporates, and he nervously stammers, trying to get the negotiation back on track. The envoy stammers in confusion, completely blindsided by the general's sudden fury. Ryzenga's face contorts with rage as he commands the terrified Marquis to be silent. He reveals the alchemist is not only his benefactor, but the man he has chosen to marry his daughter. The Marquis stumbles backward as the general's furious gaze demands he stop his foolish games. The envoy screams in disbelief, unable to comprehend Thor's connection to the legendary warrior. He desperately tries to salvage the deal, reminding the general of the potential benefits. Ryzenga declares their discussion over, vowing to report this treachery directly to the Emperor. With a powerful roar, the general unleashes a shockwave, ordering the envoy to leave his sight. The Marquis is sent flying, crying out as the force of the general's anger slams into him. Ryzenga icily informs the disgraced envoy that he never wants to see his despicable face again. The terrified envoy babbles that this wasn't part of his father's plan, as the general's intimidating shadow falls over him. Agnes rushes in to find the chaos, as her father grimly admits that he too has been foolish. The general reflects on his own shortcomings, realizing he still has much to learn. Days later, the Demon King receives a full report from Ryzenga detailing the Marquis's treacherous actions at the border. The aide explains the Marquis's plot to tempt the general into embezzling silver from the mines. The report also reveals the plan to frame Thor, all in exchange for the Empire's military cooperation. The Demon King clenches his fist, admitting he never anticipated this level of treachery from the Empire's envoy. The aide then presents a new development, an official letter from the Bulgaria Empire. The letter conveniently claims the entire incident was the work of rogue lords, not an official act of the Empire. Overwhelmed by the blatant political maneuvering, the Demon King lets out an exasperated sigh. The aide confirms the treacherous proposal involved using Thor as the fall guy. The Demon King clenches her fist, realizing the Empire truly sent Thor as a human sacrifice. The news of the Empire's cruelty towards Thor leaves even Agnes distraught. Her aide offers to break the news to the alchemist, but the Demon King firmly refuses. She declares that as her alchemist, she will be the one to inform him of the plot. Taking her seat on the throne, she accepts full responsibility for the disastrous negotiations she approved. Her aide reluctantly accepts her command, his concern still visible. The Demon King resolves to deliver the painful news herself, planning a visit to Thor's room. Her aide reflects that he's grateful to Thor and trusted Reisenga's report completely due to his unbreakable oath. The Demon King agrees, knowing the general's vow forced him to reveal the entire unvarnished truth. The aide considers that if the general had hidden even a fraction of the truth, their entire political landscape would have shifted. He understands it would have created an irreparable rift between the Demon King's court and the powerful Flame General. The Demon King admits the conspiracy was brilliant, acknowledging it would have worked if not for their absolute trust in Reisenga. Her aide then declares his own profound debt to Thor, vowing to fulfill any request the alchemist makes. The Demon King is taken aback by his fervor, but agrees to convey his feelings to the alchemist. The aide playfully challenges her, asking what she'll do if Thor asks for a mountain of magical items in return. The scene shifts as the Demon King prepares to visit the alchemist's workshop. She arrives at the door, ready to deliver the grim news about the Empire's plot. But she finds Thor and Mabel happily chatting over tea, completely oblivious to the unfolding political crisis. Thor cheerfully recounts his harsh interrogation by Counselor Kurov, while Mabel excitedly talks about his new invention. The Demon King's smile is strained, her mind fixated on the difficult conversation she must have with Thor. She hesitates, recalling Thor's trusting nature as she prepares to reveal the Empire's sinister plot against him. She recalls the full scope of the plot, to frame Thor and bury the truth about the secret dealings. Lucia buys herself a moment, deciding to deliver the heavy news after finishing her tea. The cheerful setting of their tea party makes her hesitate, feeling it's a terrible place to discuss such betrayal. She contrasts her current predicament with her former persona, realizing the masked demon lord would have handled this with cold authority. Gulping down her nerves, she resolves to be as straightforward with him as he was with her about his own past. With a slight tremble in her hand, she finally breaks the silence and calls his name. She calmly explains there's something he needs to know about the negotiations that took place at Reisenga's estate. Thor turns to her with a look of polite curiosity, ready to listen. Lucia tries to downplay the incident, nervously explaining there were some minor troubles during the talks. Losing her composure, she blurts out that one of the Empire's envoys said something incredibly strange. Thor's expression turns to concern, questioning what she means by her vague warning. Sweating with frustration, she confirms the envoy's proposal was not just strange but terrible. She begins to reveal the treacherous plot, explaining the envoy wanted to use Reisenga to smuggle silver. Her fist clenches in anger as she recounts how the foolish noble tried to strike a secret deal with the general. She struggles to explain the worst part. The envoy had a contingency plan in case the Demon King found out. Her sudden emotional outburst startles both Thor and Mabel, who jump to their feet in concern. As tears begin to fall, it becomes clear why they're so surprised by her sudden distress. Overcome with emotion, the Demon King breaks down, unable to hold back her tears any longer. Through her tears, Lucia struggles to explain that the Empire intended to blame him and erase his existence. She reveals the envoy's plan was essentially a death sentence, orchestrated by a Margrave from his former home. The Demon King completely loses her composure, wailing uncontrollably as Thor and Mabel try to calm her down. After some time, the emotional storm finally passes. In the quiet aftermath, Thor calmly processes the shocking revelation he just heard. Lucia expresses her disbelief, realizing the man behind the plot, Duke Ligus, is none other than Thor's own father. With a sad smile of resignation, Thor admits that such a cruel scheme is entirely in his father's character. Lucia confesses she was terrified to tell him, worried the news of his family's betrayal would crush him. A touched but embarrassed Thor reassures her, calling her a good person for showing such genuine concern for him. Still confused, Lucia wonders why his father would go so far, questioning if simply exiling him wasn't enough. Thor calmly begins to unravel the twisted logic behind his father's actions. A bewildered Mabel struggles to understand why anyone would resort to framing him. Taking Lucia's hands, the alchemist prepares to explain the harsh realities of his homeland. He reveals the core issue lies within the very policies that govern the Empire. Thor shares a painful family memory. His grandfather, a legendary sword saint, met a tragic and undignified end. He explains that in a nation obsessed with martial prowess, his father's strength is all that matters. Mabel is visibly stunned, trying to process the cruel dynamics of Thor's family. The alchemist recalls how this family tragedy shaped his worldview from a very young age. He reveals his epiphany. True strength isn't about being the strongest, but about using one's skills to help others. Both Lucia and Mabel smile, recognizing the kind and noble spirit that defines the alchemist they've come to know. He explains his father, Duke Legis, would never allow such a compassionate worldview, which Lucia and Mabel see as Thor's defining quality. Thor reveals the Empire's people are driven to extreme measures in their desperate attempt to emulate their legendary founding hero. Lucia, still emotional, struggles to understand how the Duke could sacrifice his own son for such ambitions. The alchemist admits he can't understand it either, declaring he is now completely fed up with the Legis family. With a newfound resolve, he announces his decision to change his name, shocking both Lucia and Mabel. He formally renounces his father's name, asking to be called Thor Cannon, his mother's surname, from this day forward. Both Lucia and Mabel smile, agreeing that the name Thor Cannon has a very nice ring to it. He reveals he's used this name before, specifically during his time working in the Empire's government offices. Thor clarifies that while he must officially remain Thor Legis as a hostage, he wants them to use his chosen name in private. Lucia and Mabel enthusiastically agree, happy to share this new secret with him. With the heavy conversation over, Thor gets Lucia's attention to discuss another matter. A flustered Lucia suddenly realizes something and apologizes, looking embarrassed. The alchemist gently points out that she's still holding his hand from their earlier emotional moment. She explains she impulsively grabbed it, feeling sad about his past and regretting she wasn't there for him. A touched Thor thanks her for her concern, then playfully suggests they could hold hands all night, flustering her completely. A blushing Lucia admits that's exactly what she wanted, to fall asleep holding his hand. Her adorable confession leaves the alchemist speechless, only able to stammer out how cute she is. Mabel interrupts the moment, pointing out the logistical problem. Men are forbidden from the Demon King's private quarters. Thor accepts the challenge, vowing to find an alchemical solution to their long-distance hand-holding dilemma. A moment later, he returns with a book, confidently announcing he's already found a way to make it happen. Both Lucia and Mabel are stunned by his audacious solution to their hand-holding problem. With the Demon King's enthusiastic approval, the alchemist immediately began preparing for his next creation. Mabel proudly declares all the necessary components for this Hero's World item have been gathered. The strange ingredients include a pristine white sheet, a pile of empty peapod shells, and a single magic stone. Thor confidently steps up to the workbench, ready to combine these bizarre materials. Lucia and Mabel watch with a mix of excitement and apprehension, unsure what to expect. He activates his creative alchemy, beginning the delicate process of material refinement. The women gasp as the magic stone liquefies, sinking into the fabric under a beam of intense energy. Lucia watches in fascination as the dissolved stone spreads evenly throughout the sheet. Thor then instructs her to stand on the sheet and mentally command the fabric to stretch. The sheet reacts to her command, stretching into a towering pillar as she cries out in surprise. Thor explains the fabric is now freely stretchable and prepares to apply the same refinement process to the peapods. With a confident smile, he prepares for the final steps, visualizing the complete design. His plan is to create a two-layered item, with the refined shells on the inside and the sheet on the outside. He adds empty magic stones to store power and a wind element to ensure good breathability. A water element is then incorporated into the formula to give the final product a smooth texture. With a dramatic gesture, he unleashes his creative alchemy, bringing his vision to life. A system notification identifies his creation, a highly rare magical body pillow and pillowcase. Once the process is complete, a curious Lucia calls out to the alchemist. Both she and Mabel stare in awe, amazed by the incredible body pillow from the hero's world. Thor presents the body pillow as the solution to their problem, urging a hesitant Lucia to read the product description. The marketing page reveals the pillow is made of a magical, skin-like fabric that recreates the feeling of a hug. A flustered Lucia questions the item's purpose, while Mabel implies that items from the hero's world are never what they seem. Lucia remains doubtful, pointing out the description is a bit of a stretch for connecting them between separate rooms. Mabel theorizes that the marketing language is a code, concealing the item's true, powerful purpose from the unworthy. Convinced by this logic, Lucia praises Mabel's insight, who beams with pride. The Demon King then turns to the alchemist, asking for his expert opinion on the pillow's hidden abilities. With a confident look, Thor boldly declares that the body pillow can actually transform into a human shape. His incredible claim leaves both Lucia and Mabel utterly speechless with shock. He calmly explains his theory, referencing a legendary hero from his world who possessed shape-shifting abilities. Lucia confidently confirms she's familiar with a powerful shape-changing spell. She recalls the legend of a hero who used magical granules to infiltrate an army before transforming into a dragon. The Demon King reveals her own territory possesses a similar type of shape-shifting magic. The narration explains these are lumps of magic that can be molded into any shape or color. An illustration shows how the hero used these granules to create a false body, like a magical bodysuit. Lucia excitedly realizes the body pillow must have the same shape-shifting ability, which Thor confirms. He explains the special beads mentioned in the description are a clear reference to these legendary magical granules. The alchemist is left in awe, contemplating the terrifying creativity and skill of the hero's world. Thor instructs Lucia to infuse the pillowcase with her magical power, and she readily agrees. With a determined Mabel watching, the alchemist declares it's time to test their new creation. Lucia clutches the pillowcase, pouring her magical energy into the fabric. She cries out as the embedded magic stones react, which Thor notes is them absorbing her power. A stunned Mabel realizes the pillow is about to take her own form. The alchemist confirms that since magic contains a user's information, the pillow will read the infused case. Lucia looks down at the now glowing pillowcase, her expression a mix of awe and apprehension. With a hopeful look, Thor prepares to combine the two components for the final test. He turns to Lucia, a bead of sweat on his brow as he presents the pillow, ready for the transformation. As the case is slipped on, the pillow begins to glow and contort, its form shifting dramatically. The narration explains the combination of the fabric's stretchiness and the shell's shape memory is key to the process. All the elements converge, magic stones, attributes, and infused power, creating a perfect, glowing silhouette of Mabel. The trio stares in utter confusion as the magical light finally subsides. In a flash, the pillow transforms into a perfect, life-sized replica of Mabel. The real Mabel stares at her duplicate in disbelief, questioning if she's seeing herself. Lucia points in amazement, completely stunned by the flawless recreation of her maid. The alchemist contemplates the incredible power of an item from the so-called hero's world. Mabel corrects this thought, realizing such a feat is possible only because of Thor's unique genius. The replica waves cheerfully, demonstrating it can move according to the real Mabel's thoughts. Both Mabels celebrate in unison, declaring the alchemist's experiment a huge success. The maid then suggests they could make a Thor-shaped pillow, fulfilling the Demon King's wish. But the alchemist suddenly announces the experiment failed as the pillow goes limp, its magic released. He declares the replica a failure, admitting it captured her appearance but none of her true charm. A shocked Mabel questions the transformation, while Lucia angrily asks why he's so dissatisfied. He elaborates that Mabel's true appeal lies in her kindness and resilience, not just her appearance. He fondly recalls how her constant support puts him at ease, a quality the lifeless pillow could never replicate. With a smile, he concludes that's why the experiment failed, though he still finds the pillow version of her cute. His heartfelt praise leaves Mabel blushing furiously, completely overwhelmed with emotion. Lucia steps in, telling him to stop as a completely flustered Mabel collapses onto the table. Changing the subject, he promises Lucia that with a little more time, he can still grant her original wish. A delighted Lucia thanks him, then cheerfully invites the overwhelmed Mabel to sleep with her tonight. The unexpected invitation leaves Mabel flustered, but she eagerly accepts the offer. Lucia looks at Thor with a gentle smile, telling him that the real him is far more important. A flustered Thor agrees, admitting the real him is very different from the pillow version. He blushes, now understanding Mabel's earlier embarrassment, and bids them good night. But as he leaves, his thoughts turn to a more serious matter, the upcoming beast subjugation. Deciding there's still time before Lucia sleeps, he resolves to create more of the magical fabric. He reasons that despite her reassurances, it's better to be prepared for any emergency. With a look of resolve, he decides to forge an enchanted sword for the Demon King. Meanwhile, in the Demon King's quarters, Lucia calls out to her maid. A nervous Mabel immediately responds, asking what Her Majesty requires. With a wry smile, Lucia admits to herself that she has once again underestimated the alchemist's capabilities. She marvels that the alchemist actually created a body pillow so they could hold hands while sleeping. But a flustered Lucia realizes they overlooked one very important detail in their plan. Mabel shares her panic, finding it completely impossible to fall asleep in this situation. The two spend a restless night, their minds racing and sleep completely out of reach. The scene then shifts to the mining region, where the forest is eerily filled with giant hanging egg sacs. A large bear wanders through the desolate landscape, its eyes reflecting the harsh environment. Suddenly, a massive arachnid ambushes the bear, overwhelming it with its powerful legs. The monstrous Gargarosa watches as its swarm of smaller arachnids consumes its latest victim. A new seed is shown taking root, its eye-like surface reflecting the blighted land it will soon infest. The narration reveals Gargarosa is spreading its nest far faster than anticipated, wreaking havoc across the entire region. A demon soldier reports the spider infestation is out of control, realizing he must warn the Demon King immediately. He frantically rides away, calculating the terrifying number of nests and the potential size of the swarm. The soldier understands that facing such a horde would result in catastrophic losses for both the demon and human armies. Days before the mission, Thor demonstrates a new creation to a stunned Ryzenga and his commanders. The Demon King reflects on her two identities, the gentle Lucia and the formidable masked ruler. On the day of the subjugation, Thor and Mabel prepare to present his new items to the commanders. While Thor worries about his inventions being accepted, Lucia's thoughts seem to be on something else entirely. A flashback reveals that hours earlier, Thor was officially ordered to remain at the castle during the mission. He accepts the decision, knowing his lack of combat skills means he can only provide support from the rear. As Mabel reassures him, Thor reflects on how her kindness sets her apart from the people of his homeland. Mabel's thoughts turn to the upcoming mission, specifically the Empire's treacherous actions. She worries aloud that something terrible might happen to the Demon King during the battle. Her words strike a chord with Thor, whose fist tightens in silent resolve, startling Mabel. The thought of Lucia in danger snaps him out of his complacency, and he reacts with sudden alarm. He now understands what he must do, realizing he needs to get official approval for his new plan. His plan is to defy his orders and get permission to leave the safety of the castle. With a look of pure determination, he resolves to follow the Demon King to the front lines. The doors swing open to reveal a hall filled with the Demon King's top commanders. Counselor Kurov greets the alchemist, revealing he's been expecting his arrival. A dwarven commander addresses the diverse group of soldiers, thanking them for assembling for the critical mission. Thor announces to the assembled commanders that he has created an entirely new material. The Demon King, in her masked persona, formally presents the alchemist and his invention for their evaluation. Her masked face betrays her intrigue as she questions the very concept of a new material. The Demon King's composure cracks, realizing he accidentally invented a new substance while crafting something else. Thor sheepishly confirms that this groundbreaking discovery was indeed a happy accident. He explains his goal is to determine if this accidental invention has any practical military applications. Mabel steps forward to present the creation. 4 samples of a fabric fused with magic stones dubbed magic fabric. She elaborates that each sample is imbued with a different element and reacts uniquely to magical energy. Counselor Kurov looks on with suspicion, completely unfamiliar with this so-called magic fabric. While the other commanders watch with curiosity, the Demon King begins her own inspection of the strange new cloth. A Minotaur commander tests the earth attribute fabric, amazed that even his immense strength can't tear it. Next, a Lizardman commander praises the water attribute fabric for its incredible smoothness against his scales. The Dwarven commander is equally impressed, realizing the fire and wind fabrics are perfect for extreme temperatures. Thor beams with pride, finding true joy in seeing his creations bring happiness to others. Counselor Kurov interrupts the excitement, clarifying that the Demon King wishes to conduct a trial run first. The Demon King agrees, praising the invention but stating it's unreasonable to expect immediate, widespread adoption. Seizing the opportunity, Thor eagerly suggests using the fabric for the upcoming beast subjugation mission. The masked ruler turns the question back on him, asking for his specific reasoning. He explains the beast's nest is near a hot volcano, and the cooling wind fabric would provide much-needed comfort. Convinced by his logic, the Demon King approves the plan and orders him to begin production immediately. The masked ruler gives her official approval, confirming the magic fabric will be deployed for the mission. She then probes further, asking if he's also managed to create fabrics with light or dark attributes. The counselor sweats nervously, certain that even the alchemist must have his limits. The Demon King agrees, dismissing the idea as impossible since creating the first 4 was already a miracle. Her confidence wavers as she notices the smug looks on both Thor and Mabel's faces. With a theatrical flourish, the duo announces they are ready to demonstrate the light and dark fabrics. The Demon King is left speechless as Mabel proudly presents the dark attribute cloth. As magic flows into it, the fabric turns pitch black, absorbing all light and astonishing the commanders. The alchemist clarifies its absorption rate isn't perfect, leaving a faint, ghostly silhouette. He cheerfully explains its main purpose is to create blackout curtains for light-sensitive demons. The masked ruler then inquires about the final sample, the light attribute fabric. Thor admits this one was a failure, demonstrating how it turns his cloak completely transparent. He explains it only makes the fabric see-through, not the wearer, and he's unsure of its purpose. The Demon King concludes that while the elemental fabrics are useful, the light and dark versions seem to have no military value. Mabel beams with pride, praising the alchemist for the incredible contributions he's made to their land. The assembled commanders suddenly burst into applause, leaving a flustered Thor stunned by their reaction. The Demon King commends his excellent presentation, which the alchemist happily accepts. She then asks if he has even more to show, worrying that he's overworking himself. The alchemist announces he has one final item he wishes to give directly to Her Majesty. An aide brings forward a simple, tied-up bundle, which Thor presents as his last creation for the day. With a confident smirk, the alchemist reveals his final gift is a legendary magic sword. While Mabel smiles proudly, the assembled commanders begin to murmur in disbelief. The crowd erupts, shocked that he could create a weapon even the elves and dwarves couldn't replicate. The masked ruler leans in, intrigued, asking if he truly succeeded in forging the fabled blade. She reaches for the wrapped item, wondering which specific magic sword he could have possibly made. But before she can unwrap it, Thor makes a formal request to the Demon King. The masked ruler calmly grants him permission to speak his mind. In front of the entire assembly, the alchemist asks to join the beast's subjugation mission. He argues that with so many new magic items in play, on-site adjustments will be crucial. Counselor Kuruv agrees, adding that without Thor, managing the new magic fabric would be impossible. The masked ruler considers his plea, then delivers a single firm refusal. She reveals new intel from her scouts. The target beasts are completely unknown, and their numbers are far greater than expected. The commanders are horrified by the scouts' report, realizing the enemy force could be double the size of their own. The Demon King confirms their fears, stating the enemy numbers around 100. She concludes that due to the extreme danger, she cannot guarantee his safety and orders him to remain at the castle. As Thor clenches his fist in frustration, Lucia realizes he must have heard about the Empire's treachery from Mabel. The alchemist is left speechless, realizing the Demon King has seen through his official excuse. She then reveals a new detail from the Empire's official letter, which specifically mentions a holy sword. Thor understands the chilling implication. The Empire intends to deploy legendary weapons from the hero's world. Lucia's expression hardens as she recognizes this isn't just a plan, but a dangerous ambition held by the Empire. A stunned Thor questions how she could have known about his personal ambition. The Demon King recalls his repeated declarations of wanting to create a sword that surpasses the Empire's legendary weapon. The commanders buzz with excitement, convinced that only the alchemist could achieve such a legendary feat. She declares this prototype sword is the first step in fulfilling her own ambition to surpass the hero's world. To do so, she explains, she must witness the Empire's holy sword in action with her own eyes. Understanding her reasoning, Thor makes one last desperate plea to join the mission. The masked ruler silently appraises him, questioning the depth of his resolve. She reflects that he was sent to her territory fully expecting to die, so his determination should not be underestimated. The Demon King asks if he truly understands the mortal danger he would face on the battlefield. She is conflicted. As a friend, she wants to protect him, but as a ruler, she must weigh his value to the mission. The masked ruler recalls his chosen name. Understanding his resolve comes from Thor Canon, not Thor Legis. She weighs the risk of losing a talented subordinate against the opportunity to surpass the Empire's holy sword. The commanders erupt in a passionate display, vowing their support for Her Majesty's ambition. Thor realizes her true motive is not just to lead, but to witness the power of the Holy Sword firsthand. The Demon King remains silent, absorbing the fervent loyalty of her assembled commanders. With fists raised, the entire hall roars in unison, pledging to follow their ruler into battle. Counselor Kurov smirks, declaring he will fully support her ambition, seeing an opportunity in the chaos. He lets out a quiet sigh, his plan seemingly falling perfectly into place. The counselor realizes Thor has masterfully cornered the Demon King, making it politically impossible for her to refuse his plea. An aide looks on in disbelief as the Demon King gives a single firm confirmation, having made her final decision. The masked ruler makes her decision, assigning the alchemist to the rear support unit. She then commands him to join her directly, announcing their departure in 3 days. An overjoyed Thor thanks his ruler, his face beaming with gratitude and excitement. Mabel expresses her relief, happy that the alchemist's bold move paid off. An aide teases Mabel, revealing she knew about Thor's direct appeal to the Demon King. The alchemist laughs, praising Mabel's unbeatable support and resourcefulness. His eyes sparkle with pure joy, thrilled by the prospect of the mission ahead. He explains his excitement comes from the chance to support everyone and witness the Holy Sword. Thor then admits his primary motivation was his deep concern for the Demon King's safety. Elsewhere, Counselor Kurov erupts in a panic, desperately questioning if his own scheme has failed. A high-ranking official from the Empire sweats profusely, apologizing for an unexpected and disastrous turn of events. He bows his head in despair, admitting to himself that the situation is now completely hopeless. The official panics, recalling how General Ryzenga has completely cut off all negotiations with the Empire's military minister. The military minister cries out in frustration, seeing the plan he orchestrated fall apart. He reflects on his flawed assumption that the powerful General Ryzenga would despise a non-combatant like Thor. The minister remembers the general's shocking declaration. He had chosen the alchemist to be his future son-in-law. The military minister slumps in his chair, unable to understand why the legendary warrior would value a weakling meant only for sacrifice. The other official is left completely bewildered, struggling to comprehend the strange values of the Demon King's territory. The military minister turns away in anger, concluding Thor must have betrayed the Empire to save his own skin. His face contorts with rage as he curses the alchemist, blaming him for the failure of their treacherous scheme. The Empire's official tries to reassure the minister, but the situation seems dire. The military minister is stressed, realizing the gravity of the situation. Another official arrives, causing concern and confusion. The minister is shocked by the newcomer's presence. Minister Zagran arrives, confirming the failure of their plan. The officials react with a mix of fear and nervous laughter. They bow deeply, showing respect and perhaps a bit of fear. Zagran's impressive credentials and influence are revealed. The official tries to explain the situation and salvage the plan. Zagran abruptly cancels the plan, shocking the officials. Zagran berates the military minister for his sloppy methods, pointing out he angered the demon general by trying to sacrifice his own son. The shocked minister demands to know how Zagran could have possibly learned about the secret plot. Zagran coolly reveals he had a spy infiltrate the Marquis's party and received a full report on the proceedings. The minister panics, realizing there is no way to lie or deceive his way out of this mess. Zagran continues his lecture, stating the priority was to keep the Empire safe, a goal now compromised by angering the general. The minister desperately tries to defend himself, claiming he was only following the established plan. Zagran furiously retorts that blaming his son was a foolish deviation he never approved. He declares that while the situation is irreversible, the beast subjugation will proceed as a show of the Empire's strength. Zagran coldly states that the minister should have simply withdrawn when General Ryzenga refused the extra silver. The minister eagerly volunteers to join the mission, but Zagran dismisses him, stating he has other plans for him. Zagran assigns the flustered minister a new command. The minister reacts with utter shock and disbelief. He frantically begs for a chance to explain himself. Zagran silences him, stating Thor is a forbidden topic. He warns against mentioning Thor, hinting at serious consequences. Zagran reveals Thor's newfound status and influence. He points out the minister's blunder has made Thor an enemy. The minister is overwhelmed by the disastrous turn of events. Zagran criticizes the minister's handling of Thor. He reveals a damning detail about the minister's actions. The minister desperately tries to justify his actions, ranting about Thor's lack of combat skills and his own parental despair. Zygrin coolly points out that this supposedly useless son has already won the trust of the Demon King's generals. The minister makes a final, desperate appeal, shouting that nobles should be willing to sacrifice themselves for the empire. Zygrin agrees with his noble sentiment, suggesting the minister should lead by example. He then challenges the minister to renounce his own title, a suggestion that leaves the man speechless with horror. Zygrin's question cuts deep, asking if the minister would demand a sacrifice from his son that he himself is unwilling to make. With the minister thoroughly cornered, Zygrin announces their discussion will continue at the next high-level meeting. The minister breaks down completely, letting out a silent scream of utter despair. An aide formally summons Duke Valgarigas, leaving no room for argument. As a carriage waits to take him away, the disgraced duke wonders if this is the end of his political career. The disgraced duke watches a winged figure ride through a desolate land, questioning if his fate is truly sealed. His mind races in denial, desperately refusing to believe his career and family name are finished. A memory of a mother animal nudging its young sparks a twisted parental analogy in his mind. He deludes himself into thinking Thor's actions are a cry for help, a secret plea for reconciliation. The Duke rationalizes their conflict as a common family squabble, believing a son's love is unconditional. He convinces himself that Thor's success with the demons was all an elaborate attempt to win his approval. His fist clenches in regret, certain that if they had just communicated, none of this would have happened. A manic hope fills his eyes as he concludes that Thor might actually want to come home. Minister Zygrin is left utterly speechless by the Duke's completely delusional interpretation of events. The Duke excitedly explains his theory. Thor is using his achievements to restore the family's honor. The delusional Duke decides to send a letter to confirm Thor is secretly a spy for the Empire. Minister Zygrin stares back, completely unimpressed by the Duke's nonsensical theory. He remains silent for a moment, letting the Duke's foolishness hang in the air. Seeing an opportunity, Zygrin agrees to the plan, but on his own terms. He privately considers that a carefully worded letter could sow chaos in the Demon King's territory. The scene shifts to the massive, fortified capital of the Dolgaria Empire. Inside the palace, the third imperial princess, Liana Dolgaria, greets a shadowy figure. The figure is briefed on the new, giant, spider-like magical beast appearing near the demon domain. The imposing emperor of Dolgaria is revealed, listening intently to the report. The princess reports that negotiations have failed, but insists the empire must not appear weak. The princess declares they must prove the empire's superiority over the demon domain as the hero's true successors. Impressed by her spirit, the emperor offers her a significant item to aid her mission. He presents the legendary Holy Sword Dolgaria, a powerful weapon once wielded by the hero from another world. As aides present the fabled weapon, the princess's eyes gleam with intense ambition. Liana accepts the honor, vowing to embody the spirit of the legendary hero herself. She invokes the hero's blessing, hoping it will become the source of the empire's power. Her powerful declaration earns a nod of approval from the stern emperor. Before departing, she makes a personal request to visit her twin sister, Sophia. The emperor acknowledges the long journey ahead and asks if she has any final wishes. With her new mission set, the princess turns and immediately prepares for her departure. With a stern look, the emperor grants his daughter's request. Princess Liana thanks her father, her eyes filled with determination. Overjoyed, she rushes off, eagerly calling out for her sister, Sophia.
Liana arrives at a grand balcony where her twin sister, Sophia, is waiting.
Sophia greets her with a warm smile, admitting she was anticipating her visit. She affectionately teases Liana, calling her the Princess of the Holy Sword. A flustered Liana begs her to stop, clearly embarrassed by the grand title. Sophia then expresses concern, asking if Liana should be at a palace ceremony. Liana vaguely explains the ceremony is finished, unable to reveal the full details of her mission. Unconcerned by the secrecy, Sophia simply expresses her happiness to see Liana and invites her for tea. A flustered Liana insists her sister shouldn't be serving her, as that's a maid's job. Unfazed, Sophia calmly pours a stream of hot tea into a delicate cup. She continues pouring with a serene smile, enjoying the simple, quiet moment. Liana looks on, her embarrassment growing at her sister's humble gesture. Sophia explains she wants to serve her sister personally, as her visit is a special occasion. Liana's reflection in the teacup reveals a deep, unspoken sadness behind her flustered exterior. She quietly wishes that Sophia had been the one chosen to wield the holy sword. Liana's regret is clear as she laments her sister's perceived weakness. Sophia gently refutes this, musing that her own light magic combined with the sword would have created immense power. She then adds that despite her frail health, she is perfectly content with her life as it is. Sophia humbly admits she lacks the physical strength to wield the holy sword, believing its power would be wasted on her. Liana looks at her sister with deep sadness, her heart aching for Sophia's situation. Sophia speculates on her fate if she were a noble or commoner, imagining being sent away as a hostage or to the front lines. The thought of her sister being used as a political pawn horrifies Liana. Sophia casually mentions hearing a rumor about a duke's son being sent as a hostage to the Demon King's territory. She then connects this to another rumor, that the same duke's family mishandled the repair of Liana's own magic sword. Liana recalls that the mysterious wanderer who fixed her sword was never identified, leaving a lingering mystery. With a knowing smile, Sophia deduces that Liana's visit means her mission is either finished or has hit a dead end. Liana is completely amazed, praising her sister's sharp intellect and perception. Sophia then offers her sister a piece of advice, a small spark of magic glowing at her fingertip. With a flick of her wrist, Sophia casts a spell, much to Liana's surprise. She explains the magic creates a soundproof barrier, ensuring their conversation remains private. A worried Liana begs her sister not to overexert her frail body for such a minor task. Sophia dismisses the concern, instead noting Liana's fever and urging her to listen closely. She warns that despite the Holy Sword's power, the world holds unimaginable threats. When Liana asks if she means the Demon King's forces, Sophia simply confirms, hinting at multiple dangers. Liana insists on a show of force, but Sophia cautions her against underestimating these unknown enemies. Her sister wisely suggests seeking understanding over intimidation, a concept Liana struggles to grasp. Though confused by her sister's logic, Liana cheerfully promises to heed her advice. Sophia praises Liana's honesty, predicting her instinctive nature may one day be her salvation. Sophia warns that Liana's sincerity could be exploited by those with hidden agendas. Liana thoughtfully considers her sister's advice, admitting it always gives her pause. Her sister insists such caution is important and reassures her not to worry. Liana's confidence returns as she brightly declares her trust in her tutor, Zagran. As Liana departs, Sophia asks for updates before dispelling her privacy spell with a flick of her finger. Their moment is interrupted by the arrival of a stern, eye-patch-wearing man. A maid nervously announces he is Lord Zagran, the Minister of Military Affairs, here to escort the princess. Zagran delivers new orders from the Emperor, commanding Liana to leave for the demon territory immediately. When Liana questions the sudden departure, the minister sharply reminds her it's a direct imperial command. A worried Sophia bids her sister farewell, then turns to address Zagran with a hint of warning. The minister's cold expression reveals he is completely unmoved by the princess's plea. Sophia begs Zagran to protect her sister Liana on the dangerous mission ahead. He coldly dismisses her, stating the matter is of no concern to her and she should focus on her recovery. Liana angrily defends her sister, but Zagran is lost in thought, pondering the true meaning of an ideal princess. Resigned to her duty, Liana declares she will act according to her father's wishes. Sophia watches with a heavy heart as her sister is led away by a formidable armored escort. With a look of grim resolve, Princess Liana begins her journey toward the Demon Lands. Meanwhile, a long caravan of wagons treks through the vast expanse of the Demon King's territory. This is the Gargarossa Subjugation Unit, a massive force heading south to face the monstrous beasts. Their destination is the southern mountain region, with Thor looking on from a wagon, ready for what's to come. The Subjugation Unit is composed of the formidable Minotaur Infantry Division. They are supported by the wise and powerful Elf Mage Division. Mabel recalls how Counselor Kurov rejected her suggestion to use compact magic storage for supplies. Instead, a massive logistics division with traditional wagons hauls all their equipment and provisions. The counselor's logic was sound. A visible supply train boosts troop morale, a detail Thor now understands. Riding along, the alchemist silently prays for a smooth and uneventful mission. He turns to Mabel, reminding her they must both focus on their assigned duties. Mabel responds with fiery determination, vowing to protect him with her very life. Her intense declaration catches Thor off guard, wiping the smile from his face. She explains with deep sincerity that he is a vital asset to her, the Demon King, and their entire land. A blushing Thor thanks Mabel, admitting her safety is just as important to him. Brandishing her duster, Mabel fiercely vows to destroy any monster that dares to approach him. The alchemist confidently explains he'll heed Lucia's warning and find a safe spot to inspect the holy sword. Thor and Mabel gaze upon a vast encampment, knowing the rendezvous with the Empire's forces is imminent. The narration confirms that after a long journey, the two armies have finally converged at the designated location. The command is given for the army to take a brief rest before officially meeting with the Empire's troops. Inside the command tent, the masked ruler addresses her assembled commanders, acknowledging their hard work. It's revealed that General Ryzenga and the Lizardmen unit have already been dispatched to scout the Gargarosa nest. Their mission is to monitor the beast's movements, allowing the main force to react instantly to any threat. But the Demon King's grim expression suggests that something about the situation is still deeply unsettling. Counselor Kuruv admits to the Demon King that he once believed their current level of comfort was impossible. The Minotaur commander nods in solemn agreement with the counselor's assessment. Even the wise elf commander confesses that he shared their initial skepticism. But now the commanders are all smiles, marveling at the cool and comfortable atmosphere inside the tent. A soldier demonstrates the wind magic fabric undergarments, which keep the troops refreshed and sweat-free. Thor reflects on the fabric's success, enjoying the pleasant breeze it creates within the tent. Their meeting is interrupted by the arrival of a cat-like soldier from the supply unit. The masked ruler calmly grants the soldier permission to deliver her report. With a confident grin, the soldier announces the supply unit is fully prepared for inspection. Outside, she begins to demonstrate the rapid setup of a magic fabric tent for the Demon King's review. The soldier proudly gestures, revealing a massive stockpile of crates and barrels. She boasts that they have more than enough provisions to sustain the army for several days. Thor smiles, realizing his failed light magic fabric has found its perfect application. The Demon King and her commanders watch the demonstration with wide-eyed astonishment. The supply soldier nervously asks Counselor Kuru for his opinion on the new, convenient tent. The flustered counselor impatiently demands she confirm how convenient it is. Overwhelmed by his intensity, she stammers that the new equipment is indeed incredibly useful. Kuruv quickly changes the subject, ordering her to demonstrate the supply bags next. With a simple touch, a bag made of the light fabric turns completely transparent. She reveals the contents of several bags at once, confirming their supplies are full and easily verifiable. Counselor Kuruv turns to the Demon King for her final verdict, who confirms the inspection was satisfactory. The counselor sighs, complaining about the difficulty of managing troop morale with his seemingly contradictory orders. Back in the command tent, the Demon King announces a final briefing before their meeting with the Empire's forces. She formally names their target, the monstrous Gargarosa beast. She reminds them of the beast's massive reproductive rate, which has blighted the land with hundreds of offspring. Counselor Kuruv confidently asserts that their own forces are more than capable of handling the threat alone. The Demon King's fist tightens as she prepares to reveal her true strategy. She explains that despite their strength, she values her soldiers' lives over vanity, hence the alliance with the Empire. With fierce determination, she declares their goal is to completely annihilate the enemy by coordinating with the Empire. Her words resonate with the commanders, each steeling themselves for the coming battle. Counselor Kuruv explains this first joint operation is key to improving relations and trade with the Empire. He reveals the plan is to lure the Gargarosa out of their mountain nest to avoid their dangerous threads. General Ryzenga's unit will incinerate the webs, using Thor's compact storage devices to dispose of the remains. The elf unit will provide long-range magical support, their accuracy enhanced by another of Thor's inventions, laser pointers. A diagram illustrates how this new tech allows the mages to attack from a safe distance, keeping them out of harm's way. The Demon King confirms that the infantry will be responsible for all close-range combat. Kuruv adds that the Minotaur division has been outfitted with special health enhancement pendants. Meanwhile, the Lizardman unit will patrol the perimeter, ensuring no beasts escape the main assault. The pendants will amplify the Minotaur's natural magic, making them a force comparable to General Ryzenga's own. With the strategy laid out, the Demon King concludes the briefing and asks for any final questions. Thor grows flustered as he realizes all the commanders are staring directly at him. The Minotaur commander marvels that the power gap between his unit and the generals has been completely erased. The commanders excitedly list their new advantages: safe long-range attacks for the elves and better protection for the Demon King. The elf commander adds that they even have countermeasures for the Gargarosa's dangerous threat attacks. Overwhelmed by the flawless plan, The commanders struggle to process it all, while Thor feels a strange sense of guilt. The Demon King cuts in with a stern warning, reminding them that the battlefield is always unpredictable. She declares that carelessness leads to defeat, then turns to Counselor Kuruv for an update on the Empire. The counselor apologetically reports that they have yet to receive any communication from the Empire's forces. He explains that despite sharing their own detailed strategy, the Empire has offered no information in return. The Demon King erupts in frustration, furious at the Empire's continued silence. The Demon King suspects the Empire's true intentions. Despite the alliance, the Demon King remains cautious. The Empire prioritizes swift victory above all else. Thor worries about a potential surprise attack. Urgent news arrives at the Demon King's command tent. The Empire's troops have already engaged in combat. The Demon King demands orders from her commanders. The Empire has provoked the Gargarosa beasts. The Empire's forces gather, ready for a show of strength. The Empire's true motives are revealed. The Empire's soldiers respond in perfect unison, ready to follow their orders. Princess Lyanna addresses her troops, questioning their resolve in the oppressive volcanic heat. Minister Zagran prompts the princess, giving her the stage to address the army. Despite their visible exhaustion, the soldiers roar back, affirming they are at full strength. Internally, the princess is miserable, wishing she could escape the heat and return to her sister. She announces a scout report. The Gargarosa have already sensed their approach and are mobilizing. Raising the holy sword, she declares their intent to crush the beasts and demonstrate the Empire's superiority. Lyanna invokes their legacy, proclaiming it their sacred duty as the heroes' successors to slay the monsters. An official confidently states their 300 soldiers are more than enough to handle the estimated 100 beasts. The princess turns to her subordinate, confirming he understands the battle plan they are about to execute. Minister Zagran states their goal is to overwhelm the beasts with triple their numbers, leaving no doubt of the Empire's superiority. The princess confirms her role. Her soldiers will bind the smaller creatures, allowing her to strike the main beast with the holy sword. Zagran cautions her that the sword's ultimate attack, the Blade of Sacred Light, is a one-time use due to its massive magic cost. The soldiers will mop up the lesser beasts after the main target falls, but Lyanna is reminded to conserve her energy. He pointedly adds that her composure is crucial for her soldiers' morale, causing the princess to flinch. Lyanna regains her focus, determined to embody the ideal of an imperial princess for her troops. She confidently asserts that she will not bring shame upon the Empire, especially with the demon army watching. A fierce look crosses her face as she channels the cold calculation of her father and the unshakable courage of the hero. A lookout shouts a warning as the giant beast and its massive swarm of spiders crest the horizon. Minister Zagran smirks, confirming to the princess that luring the enemy out has succeeded exactly as planned. But Minister Zagran's confident smirk vanishes as he sees the approaching horde. He realizes with dawning horror that the enemy numbers are far greater than their scouts reported. A terrifying, seemingly endless wave of Gargarosa beasts charges toward them, a truly monstrous army.